Merci. Monsieur Bruno Le Maire, French Minister of Economy, Finance and Industrial and Digital Sovereignty, Your Excellency Bandar Khurayev, Minister of Industry and Mineral Resources in Saudi Arabia, Your Excellency Jassim Mohammed Al-Badawi, Secretary General of Gulf Cooperation Council, Monsieur Laurent Saint-Martin, dear ambassadors, excellencies, ladies and gentlemen. Good morning. My name is Daleen Hassan and I'm journalist and founder of Chair Global Media in offices in Paris and Abu Dhabi. And I'm really honored and delighted to be your master of ceremony in this very special event. It's really lovely to see all of you here with us today in the city that it has its own place in the heart of every single person in this room. It's the city of love, the city of lights, the city of revolution, but also it's the city where business thrives. Paris has always been a center of creative minds, blending its rich historical heritage with forward-thinking spirit that makes it a ripe of groundbreaking ideas and solutions to global challenges. Mesdames et messieurs, je suis ravie d'être parmi vous aujourd'hui afin d'animer cette première édition de Vision Golfe organisée par Business France. C'est un plaisir de vous voir assez nombreux réunis aujourd'hui à Paris, la ville de lumière, des idées, de l'art, de l'amour, mais pas que. Paris est aussi une ville cosmopolite parmi les plus attractives au monde. Nous sommes réunis aujourd'hui pour ce 12 jours de conférence pour un échange riche au service d'une collaboration accrue entre la France et le pays du Golfe. أصحاب السعادة، السيدات والسادة، ضيوفنا الكرام، يسعدني أن أقدم هذا الحدث المميز اليوم، وإنه لمن الرائع أن تكونوا معنا جميعاً في هذه المدينة التي لها مكانتها الخاصة في قلوب الجميع هنا. مدينة الأضواء والجمال والثورة والحب والأعمال. تعرف باريس بأنها عاصمة الأناقة والرقي في العالم، وكانت دائماً مركزاً للعقول المبدعة، حيث يمتزج تاريخها الغني مع روح التفكير المستقبلي الذي مهد الطريق للأفكار والحلول للتحديات الرائدة للتحديات العالمية. نيابة عن بزنس فرانس أشكر كل الحضور الذين قدموا من دول مجلس التعاون الخليجي، ووجودكم اليوم هنا هو دليل على قوة الروابط بين فرنسا ودول الخليج. مرة أخرى أهلا بكم في باريس، وأتمنى لكم بداية رائعة لهذه النسخة الأولى من فيزيون غولف. Did you know that France stands 7th in the ranking of the richest countries in the world, with a GDP of 2.6 trillion euros? France remains in the top of the ranking for so many years. And despite that, the fact that considering the GDP as KPI for the nation is challenged, what is not contested is your presence here with us today. It's a tangible indicator that France is a productive nation that you want to include in your roadmap, strategy, and vision, whether you are representing a public or a private entity. It's a country that has been chosen for no fewer than 3 times to host the Olympic Games, because it truly does embody the spirit of faster, higher, stronger together. Now, by coming together for this inaugural edition of Vision Golfe, together we plant the seeds of new business, but also a new ways to do business. We do so without ever taking our eyes away from the issue of sustainability. Today, sustainability is everything, and we can build on the climate agreement achieved here in Paris towards COP28 this year in the UAE. With the help of our amazing speakers here, we'll challenge our perception of France and the GCC economies, because by tomorrow evening, obviously, our knowledge of the French GCC commercial cooperation will skyrocket. And being a part of Vision Golfe today and tomorrow, I really want you to enjoy the business meetings, networking sessions organized by Business France. Not just that you can nurture the discussion for upcoming profit, well, of course, you will, but at the same time, rethink the conception of sustainable business and considering greener practices. Here at Vision Golfe, together, let's reimagine business models and create shared values for all stakeholders. And please enjoy, because the only way to achieve great work is to love what we do. And to kick off Vision Golfe, please join me to welcome our first keynote speaker, Monsieur Bruno Le Maire, Minister of Economy, Finance, Industrial and Digital Sovereignty. Monsieur le Ministre.
Your Excellency, dear Bandar Ibrahim Al-Korayev, dear General Secretary Jassem Mohamed Al-Boudaoui, Monsieur le Directeur Général, cher Laurent Saint-Martin, je suis très heureux d'ouvrir ce matin avec vous ce forum d'affaires Vision Golfe. Ce forum est une grande première. C'est la première fois que nous réunissons pendant 2 jours les principaux acteurs économiques des pays du Golfe ainsi que leurs partenaires français. Je pense que c'est le témoignage le plus éclatant de l'importance que nous accordons à la relation entre la France et les États du Golfe. J'ai eu l'occasion, il y a quelques mois, de faire une tournée dans un certain nombre de ces États. Je me suis rendu au Qatar, en Arabie Saoudite, aux Émirats Arabes Unis, et je voudrais dire à tous les représentants de ces 3 États, à nouveau mes remerciements pour l'accueil très chaleureux qui m'a été réservé et pour les discussions très constructives que nous avons eues à l'occasion de ce déplacement. Pourquoi est-ce que les États du Golfe sont, à nos yeux, des États décisifs ? Tout simplement parce que l'Arabie Saoudite, Bahreïn, les Émirats Arabes Unis, le Koweït, le Qatar, Oman sont des pays décisifs pour la transition énergétique. L'ancien monde, c'est le Golfe qui rime avec pétrole. Le nouveau monde, c'est les États du Golfe qui investissent massivement dans les énergies renouvelables, dans la lutte contre le réchauffement climatique, dans les innovations technologiques, dans les économies d'eau, dans la capacité à faire le meilleur usage des ressources de la planète sans épuiser la planète. Et nous sommes ici tous ensemble pour renforcer notre coopération, mais pour montrer aussi cette nouvelle image des États du Golfe qui sont totalement investis dans la lutte contre le réchauffement climatique. Le meilleur symbole de tout cela, bien entendu, c'est le fait que la COP28, qui se tiendra à Dubaï, sera présidée par un de ces États du Golfe et par mon ami Sultan Al-Jaber. Je souhaite au président Sultan Al-Jaber, je souhaite aux Émirats Arabes Unis, je souhaite à tous les États impliqués dans cette COP28 le plus grand succès. Et vous savez que vous pouvez compter sur le soutien de la France pour faire de cette COP28 un grand succès diplomatique, politique et climatique pour l'ensemble de la planète. L'occasion aujourd'hui est unique et elle doit être saisie. Et je sais bien que parfois, des critiques sont apparues en disant « Mais comment est-ce que vous pouvez confier à un État du Golfe la responsabilité de la COP ?» C'est précisément parce que les États du Golfe, tous collectivement, se sont engagés dans cette transition climatique, ont pris la mesure du défi et qu'ils ont aussi les ressources naturelles, et n'hésitons pas à le dire, les ressources financières pour financer cette transition énergétique qui va coûter très cher, que cela a beaucoup de sens que la COP28 soit attribuée à un des États du Golfe et que nous fassions confiance à ces États pour apporter des réponses concrètes. Nous devons, en deuxième lieu, prendre conscience du moment historique où nous sommes. Et rien n'est plus enthousiasmant d'être aux responsabilités à un moment où se joue l'avenir de la planète pour les décennies à venir. Nous assistons depuis quelques mois à deux changements décisifs dont nous devons prendre toute la mesure. Le premier changement, c'est la fin d'une globalisation absurde qui se faisait au détriment du climat, où seuls comptaient les échanges économiques, où seul comptait le coût le plus bas possible. On pouvait faire venir un bateau du Brésil chargé de café pour qu'il aille jusqu'au Havre, pour repartir ensuite dans les Antilles, où le paquet de café sera vendu à prix d'or avec un coût climatique exorbitant. Cette mondialisation des échanges totalement libres, sans mesure de l'impact sur le climat, sans mesure de l'impact sur nos sociétés, sans mesure de l'impact sur nos industries et sur nos emplois, cette mondialisation-là est morte, elle est finie, elle est caduque. Le Covid a montré que nous ne pouvions plus accepter que nos échanges soient brutalement interrompus à cause d'une pandémie et que nous soyons trop dépendants les uns des autres. Nous devons chacun bâtir notre indépendance, notre souveraineté et éviter que les flux commerciaux se fassent au détriment des émissions de CO2 et au détriment de la planète. C'est le premier grand changement. Le deuxième, évidemment, c'est l'accélération du réchauffement climatique. Le réchauffement climatique, désormais, nous prend à la gorge, au sens propre comme au sens figuré. Il nous menace. Il menace notre santé, il menace nos vies quotidiennes. Il menace le bien-être de nos enfants. Il menace nos intérêts économiques. Il menace nos propriétés. Et quand je dis nos propriétés, vous avez plusieurs millions de propriétés en France, immeubles, logements, maisons, qui sont menacées par les sécheresses, par le craquellement, et que demain, les assureurs ne voudront plus assurer. Elle menace notre stabilité politique avec des flux migratoires de plus en plus élevés de populations qui sont chassées tout simplement par le réchauffement climatique. Elle menace la stabilité dans les pays du Golfe aussi. L'accélération du réchauffement climatique n'est plus une vague idée qui flotte dans les journaux, elle est une réalité humaine que nous vivons au quotidien et qui est insupportable pour chacun d'entre nous. Et c'est le croisement de ces deux grands changements, réorganisation de la mondialisation et accélération du réchauffement climatique, qui doit construire notre coopération entre les États du Golfe, la France et les États européens. Alors, quelles sont les stratégies que chacun d'entre nous a développées pour faire face à ces deux défis ? En France, notre stratégie a été définie avec beaucoup de clarté par le président de la République, Emmanuel Macron. Elle tient en un mot la réindustrialisation de la France. Si nous voulons combattre le réchauffement climatique, il ne faut pas renoncer à son industrie, il faut construire une industrie verte. C'est tout l'objet des décisions que nous avons prises depuis 6 ans, et c'est l'objet du projet de loi que je présenterai dans quelques jours maintenant, la semaine prochaine, sur l'industrie verte. Quel est notre objectif ? Que la France soit une grande nation de production, que la France décarbone son industrie et que la France produise les technologies qui sont indispensables à la lutte contre le réchauffement climatique, ce que j'appelle les Big Five, les pompes à chaleur, les éoliennes, les panneaux solaires, les batteries électriques et l'hydrogène vert. 5 technologies clés pour garantir sa souveraineté industrielle et garantir l'efficacité de la lutte contre le réchauffement climatique. Oui, il vaut mieux produire nos batteries, nos voitures électriques chez nous, en France, dans des conditions environnementales les plus satisfaisantes au monde, plutôt que de les importer de Chine ou d'ailleurs, où elles auront été produites dans des conditions environnementales moins satisfaisantes. Voilà le cœur de notre technologie, voilà le cœur de notre stratégie, telle que nous l'avons définie avec le président de la République, accélérer la réindustrialisation du pays, décarboner notre industrie pour gagner cette lutte contre le réchauffement climatique et renforcer notre indépendance. De l'autre côté, je vois la stratégie de nos amis du Golfe. J'ai eu l'occasion, là encore, d'en discuter avec beaucoup de ministres d'Arabie Saoudite, des Émirats Arabes Unis, du Qatar, d'autres États quand ils étaient en visite en France, et j'ai été très frappé de voir leur engagement dans la lutte contre le réchauffement climatique et leur volonté d'accélérer aussi la transition énergétique. J'ai vu, pour tous ceux qui critiquent, la plus grande ferme de panneaux solaires au monde, qui est d'ailleurs exploitée par EDF et qui se trouve aux Émirats Arabes Unis. J'ai vu les recherches de l'Arabie Saoudite en matière d'hydrogène vert et la volonté de l'Arabie Saoudite de s'engager totalement dans la production d'hydrogène vert, y compris en ayant accès à des technologies de pointe comme les électrolyseurs. J'ai vu ce qui était fait en matière d'irrigation et de techniques d'irrigation, avec des observations satellites qui permettent de mesurer le mieux possible là où l'irrigation peut être utile. J'ai donc vu des États qui ont pris la mesure du défi et qui veulent, comme nous, y apporter une réponse non pas par la décroissance, mais par la croissance verte. Nous avons des stratégies qui sont similaires. Bien sûr, nos histoires ne sont pas les mêmes, nos ressources ne sont pas les mêmes, nos choix ne sont pas toujours les mêmes économiquement, mais les grandes stratégies sont similaires. Nous voulons être des leaders de l'industrie verte de demain. Et c'est pour cela, et je terminerai par là, que si nos stratégies sont similaires, si les États du Golfe veulent s'engager avec autant de force dans la lutte contre le réchauffement climatique sur la base de choix technologiques courageux, audacieux et efficaces, si de l'autre côté, la France a enfin tourné la page de 30 à 40 années de délocalisation industrielle, de fermeture d'usines, d'abandon d'ingénieurs, d'abandon d'ouvriers, pour retrouver une capacité de production industrielle et décarbonée, travaillons ensemble. Nous avons des stratégies similaires, travaillons ensemble. Et je voudrais donc ouvrir ce matin un certain nombre de coopérations possibles. Je les vois évidemment dans l'hydrogène vert, qui sera un des grands enjeux de demain et sur lesquels nous avons des projets de coopération qui peuvent être ouverts. Je les vois dans l'énergie nucléaire, sur lequel nous savons que nous avons des discussions et nous sommes convaincus les uns comme les autres que le nucléaire est une des solutions à la lutte contre le réchauffement climatique en garantissant l'accès à une énergie sûre, décarbonée, à un coût raisonnable. Je vois des coopérations possibles, monsieur le ministre, dans le domaine des matériaux critiques et des ressources minières. Vous organisez, cher Bandar Ibrahim Al-Khoraïef, une grande réunion dans quelques mois à Riyad sur la question des ressources minières, qui sont décisives pour toutes les technologies dont je viens de parler, aussi bien pour les batteries électriques, les véhicules électriques, que pour l'hydrogène vert. Eh bien, je serai très heureux, si mon emploi du temps me le permet, de participer à cette réunion et de répondre à votre invitation. La question des ressources critiques et des matériaux critiques est absolument clé pour garantir l'indépendance totale de nos chaînes de valeur. Donc vous le voyez, je pense que nous ne sommes qu'au début d'une grande aventure économique, climatique et industrielle. Et que des partenariats qui étaient parfois un peu distants ou qui ne reposaient pas suffisamment sur des actions concrètes et des investissements concrets peuvent aujourd'hui se transformer à la faveur de la transition climatique et de cette réorganisation des chaînes de valeur en partenariats concrets, garants de prospérité et d'efficacité dans la lutte contre le réchauffement climatique. C'est en tout cas ce que je souhaite pour ce forum Vision Golfe 2023. Je veux vous redire que vous êtes toutes et tous les bienvenus à Paris et que nous allons faire du bon travail ensemble. Merci à tous.
Merci beaucoup, Monsieur le Ministre, pour cette inspiring speech. And now it's my pleasure to welcome the CEO of Business France, the national agency responsible for fostering international development of French economy, an agency that acts as a bridge between French companies and international markets, providing them with support, guidance, to expand their presence in different places around the world. They are present in over 70 countries, and they have 1,500 employees. Ladies and gentlemen, join me to welcome Monsieur Laurent Saint-Martin.
Messieurs les ministres, cher Bandar El-Koraïef, Monsieur le secrétaire général, Mesdames les ambassadrices, Messieurs les ambassadeurs, Mesdames et Messieurs les parlementaires, Mesdames et Messieurs, merci tout d'abord au ministre Bruno Le Maire d'avoir accepté d'ouvrir cet événement inédit, et merci à vous toutes et tous de témoigner par votre présence l'importance de cet événement de Vision Golfe qui témoigne finalement de la priorité politique forte que donne à la fois le gouvernement français et son agence Business France à l'approfondissement des relations avec les pays du Golfe. C'est évidemment un signal fort qui est envoyé autant à nos entreprises qu'à nos partenaires. Et donc, si je vous remercie d'être ici aussi nombreux, c'est que vous êtes plus de 900 participants qui se sont inscrits sur 2 jours, dont 350 participants issus des 6 pays du Golfe. Il y aura plus de 1000 rendez-vous qui sont d'ores et déjà organisés, en marge de 14 tables rondes qui vont rassembler plus de 78 speakers de haut niveau. Donc cette première édition, en termes d'organisation, est d'ores et déjà un succès. Cette première édition ne sera pas la dernière. Je voudrais déjà vous dire qu'elle sera suivie de nombreuses autres, car nous voulons d'ores et déjà ancrer dans la durée ce rendez-vous et bâtir chaque année encore plus de ponts entre nos acteurs économiques et nos territoires. Parce que le ministre Bruno Le Maire l'a parfaitement dit, il se trouve que nous avons la chance de partager avec les pays du Golfe, depuis toujours, un même respect mutuel, une compréhension culturelle profonde et des priorités stratégiques fortes. Nous aurons l'occasion d'en reparler dès la première table ronde. Les pays du Conseil de coopération du Golfe sont depuis longtemps une priorité en ce qui concerne l'action de Business France, évidemment sous l'angle qui est le nôtre, celui du commerce, celui de l'investissement. Et il manquait, depuis tant d'années, un événement majeur, un flagship event, comme on dit en bon français, pour illustrer cette relation particulière et exceptionnelle. Eh bien, cet événement, c'est Vision Golfe, et nous y sommes. Nous avons donc voulu un événement qui soit pratique, qui soit utile et qui soit concret. Vision Golfe propose pendant 2 jours des panels, des tables rondes de haut niveau, avec des thématiques qui seront opérationnelles, précises, d'actualité, et puis aussi et surtout pour vous, des moments de networking qui permettront à tous les participants de se rencontrer, d'échanger, et puis surtout de construire leurs relations futures. Et puis enfin, une plateforme et un espace B2B vous permettront d'amorcer et de concrétiser vos courants d'affaires et d'investissement. Parce que dans un monde finalement en proie avec les crises, quelle que soit leur nature, les pays du Golfe offrent, il est vrai, un réservoir considérable d'opportunités pour nos entreprises françaises à l'export et pour nos territoires en investissement potentiel. Et tous les pays du GCC portent en effet une promesse d'optimisme. Ils l'ont affiché l'an dernier avec un record en termes de croissance. Les plus ambitieux méga-projets prennent corps, ce sont de véritables laboratoires de demain. La diversification des économies et la préparation de l'après-pétrole est une réalité palpable et les investissements en sont une démonstration tout à fait concrète. Pour nos exportateurs, les opportunités d'affaires sont extrêmement nombreuses dans tous les secteurs d'activité, produits alimentaires, équipements et solutions pour les industries agroalimentaires, équipements et solutions pour l'élevage et l'aquaculture, agrotech, foodtech, industrie aéronautique, environnement et ville durable, transport et mobilité, sécurité et transport, ou encore transition énergétique, évidemment, hydrocarbures, intelligence artificielle, et j'en passe. Tous les secteurs sont représentés dans nos coopérations entre les 6 pays du GCC et la France, et vous représentez ici l'ensemble des secteurs d'activité dont nous allons parler. Et puis sur le volet de l'attractivité, les très importantes capacités d'investissement, à la fois publiques et privées, couplées aux visions, qui sont ces plans nationaux de développement, de modernisation et d'investissement élaborés par la plupart de ces États, eh bien, elles offrent de véritables opportunités de partenariat, pour autant, bien évidemment, que nous sachions répondre, nous-mêmes, Français, aux attentes et aux besoins de nos partenaires du Golfe. Quant à la France, c'est simple, beaucoup d'entre vous le savent ce matin, elle n'a jamais été aussi attractive. Pour la 4e année consécutive, nous sommes premiers au classement Ernst & Young des pays les plus attractifs d'Europe. Et comme vous le savez, la dernière édition du sommet Choose France à Versailles, en mai dernier, a battu tous les records avec 13 milliards d'euros d'investissements annoncés pour plus de 8 000 emplois créés partout en France. La réindustrialisation de la France est une réalité qui se bâtit chaque jour dans l'ensemble de nos territoires. Et l'ambition portée par le plan France 2030 est aujourd'hui devenue un point de repère pour les investisseurs du monde entier, donc ceux du Golfe. Et je le dis à tous nos amis ici des 6 pays concernés, saisissez-vous de cette opportunité, faites confiance à nos talents, choisissez la France, c'est un choix gagnant. Et je le dis également aux entreprises françaises, projetez-vous vers les pays du Golfe, n'ayez aucune hésitation, foncez, vos savoir-faire y sont reconnus, votre expertise y est attendue, votre excellence y est bienvenue. Et vous aurez l'occasion de le mesurer lors des tables rondes et des rendez-vous qui vont rythmer cet événement pendant 2 jours. Projetez-vous, mais d'abord préparez-vous, car la région est évidemment très courtisée. La compétition y est particulièrement forte, et c'est là que l'accompagnement sur mesure proposé par nos équipes de Business France et l'ensemble de ses partenaires de la Team France Export peuvent vous permettre de faire la différence. Et c'est sous la direction d'Axel Barou, que je salue ici, avec nos équipes sur place, que nous sommes à votre disposition. Donc allez les voir tout au long de ces 2 jours ici, allez les voir dans les pays du Golfe, sollicitez leurs conseils et leur expertise. Business France est là pour vous. Utilisez leur savoir-faire et faites confiance à leur détermination, car tous ces collaborateurs de Business France n'ont qu'une seule boussole, votre succès en termes de business. Et je voudrais, pour conclure, remercier à nouveau les 2 ministres présents, le ministre Le Maire pour ses mots et son accueil, également par avance le ministre Olivier Becht qui ouvrira la séquence de Vision Golfe de demain, et tous nos partenaires intervenants, délégués en particulier pour ceux très nombreux venus des pays du GCC. Donc c'est un véritable plaisir de vous accueillir toutes et tous à Paris. Et puis enfin, je voudrais avoir un mot de remerciement pour l'ensemble des partenaires qui nous soutiennent, que vous voyez ici, et qui nous permettent de tenir cet événement dans un délai court et avec beaucoup d'ambition, comme vous pouvez le voir. Je vous souhaite à toutes et tous une excellente et fructueuse première édition de Vision Golfe. Je vous remercie.
Merci, Monsieur Laurent Saint-Martin, for this very motivating speech. And I really wish you an outstanding inaugural edition of Vision Golfe. And also, just a reminder, don't forget to share your thoughts, your photos about this nice event using the hashtags Vision Golfe and France GCC. And now, before talking business, let's draw a map of the geopolitics of resources that will help us to navigate a changing landscape, giving us keys to contribute more into a sustainable future. Please join me to welcome our moderator, Faisal Abbas, Editor-in-Chief of Arab News, and his distinguished guests. His Excellency Bandar Ibrahim Al-Khurayef, Minister of Industry and Mineral Resources of Saudi Arabia. His Excellency Jassim Mohammed Badawi, Secretary General of Gulf Cooperation Council. Madame Megali Cezana, Head of Bilateral Affairs, General Direction of French Treasury. Madame Anne Gauguin, Director of the North Africa and Middle East Department at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, and Monsieur Laurent Saint-Martin, CEO of Business France.
Mesdames et messieurs, bonjour. Permettez-moi de continuer cette conversation en anglais. صباح الخير أصحاب السعادة والمعالي. الجلسة بتكون باللغة الإنجليزية فاسمحوا لي بالتحول إلى اللغة الإنجليزية. Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. A very beautiful morning actually from this very beautiful city. On this first ever Vision Golf event in its first edition. My name is Faisal Abbas. I'm the editor-in-chief of Arab News, Saudi Arabia and the Middle East leading English language daily, which has a French edition, by the way, which we have launched in 2020, arabnews.fr, particularly for the reasons that we are going to be discussing on this panel, which is geopolitics and business. Having been a journalist for over 20 years, I cannot stress enough how interrelated the two are, and we're going to find out in this panel how the two cannot be separated. I mentioned 2020, which is known not just because we launched Arab News France, but because of another thing called the pandemic that has happened during that year. And that was a lesson for everybody about how geopolitics, global collaboration, supply chain can be affected. In 2020, that has impacted oil prices. As we all remember, oil prices went into negative and the market was absorbed the shock and recovered since then. In 2021, we all suffered the supply chain impact of what happened during the pandemic. Prices went up. There were problems with flights and freights. In 2022, just as we were removing our masks and starting to go back to normal, Russia invaded Ukraine, and you know how that geopolitical event impacted energy prices and supply chains all over the world. As we enter 2023, ChatGPT was gave us a warm welcome to the year. Now we are talking about how that's going to impact education, jobs, manufacturing. Also, about 2 months ago, we all woke up to a sudden war in Sudan. And I recently found out that perhaps one of the least impacts of that war, apart from the tragedy, of course, and the lives lost and the fact that the economic opportunity, and we don't know when that's going to end, is it might all impact our ability to drink Pepsi and Coca-Cola, because Sudan is the biggest and most important exporter of gum arabica, or الصمغ العربي. So hold on to your cans of Coke and bottles of Coke at home. But of course, we are here to discuss all of this with our panel. And just to end this introduction on a positive note, news, although we are in the business of bad news, doesn't have to always be negative, particularly in this part of the world that we are talking about in this panel. In fact, as an observer, I can tell you that since the Al-Ula Accord, which ended the GCC rift 2 years ago, we have seen a trajectory of positivity in the region. We have Minister Al-Khurayef here from Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia is projected to be the fastest growing G20 economy, overtaking India even this year. Qatar has hosted a very successful World Cup last year. The United Arab Emirates hosted the Expo and is about to host Expo COP28. Businesses are booming. Companies are relocating to the region. So clearly there's something going on, and we are here to discuss how the GCC and the Gulf cannot miss out on this opportunity. With me on this fantastic panel, in no particular order, just happens how we were seated, but His Excellency Bandar Al-Khurayef, who needs no introduction. He is the Minister of Industry and Mining in Saudi Arabia, and also has been in this position for 3 years, or a little bit more, just to be accurate. And he's actually on tour, and I've had the pleasure of meeting with him yesterday to be briefed on his conversations that he's had here in France. Just to go over our fantastic panel, actually, we have His Excellency Jassim Al-Badawi, the Secretary General of the GCC, as we talk about the GCC as a bloc. His Excellency was also Ambassador of Kuwait to the United States of America. We have from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of France, the Director of the MENA region, Anne Guguian. Please, I've used up all my French knowledge in the first two sentences, so if I mispronounce the names, please forgive me. We have Magali Cessna from the Department of Treasury, and last but not least, Monsieur Laurent Saint-Martin from Business France to give us the French perspective. Allow me to kick in straight into the conversation. Ms. Cessna, your department supports the French economy and promoting France as a place to do business. I just came from Riyadh. I arrived yesterday. 2 days ago, there was the first ever edition of the Arab-Chinese Business Conference, where $10 billion were signed, of deals were signed on day one. The second day, the Emirates, the United Arab Emirates, announced that its vision with India to increase non-oil trade to $100 billion of investment by 2030. So my question to you, just to kind of give this morning an energetic start, where is France, and what are your plans to catch up with these two major competitors, India and China?
Thank you for your broad questions. And thank you, Minister, to be here, and Secretary General, and all of you. And as it has been said in the beginning by Mr. Le Maire, this event shows the necessity, first of all, to increase our cooperation and the willingness of all of us to increase cooperation. I'm in charge of economic bilateral affairs and export credit, but also attractiveness. I'm involved in attractiveness policy in the Ministry of Economy and Foreign Affairs. And as you said, global challenges are diverse. You mentioned COVID crisis, which change our lives and impact our economies. You mentioned the war in Ukraine. Mr. Le Maire mentioned the economic and ecological transition. And you mentioned ChatGPT. You're right, actually. We should have it in mind. What my ministry, the Ministry of Economy and Finance, does in these fields, first of all, let me focus a little bit on economical transition. Mr. Le Maire explained it very well, and all our tools, the tools we have to support cooperation and trade between, for instance, Gulf countries and France, we have decided to focus them on green transition. For instance, in 2019, we decided to ban financial support to coal industry. We decided this year to suppress export financing for fossil fuel industries, and from all the chain value, from exploration to distribution. And of course, our ministry explained, and Minister explained it, the government has a very high, important bill which is going to be discussed in the Parliament next week in green transition. So I think that we have, and Mrs. Anne Guéguin will explain it better than I do, the partnership we will to focus on are going to, well, I'm going to say something which is quite personal. I used to travel in the Gulf countries 20 years ago, and I travel in Gulf countries today, and I'm quite impressed by the change of these countries. And I think that you are going to talk about diversification of the economy, and our enterprises are already involved in this diversification. Big companies, I'm not going to quote all of them, and they want to, and I think that some of them are in this room, they want to be more involved in this transition. And there's not only China, Russia, or these countries in the world, and I think that maybe the tension, the geopolitical tension we are facing between China and other countries give rooms to a better cooperation for Gulf countries and European countries, and above all, French companies.
Absolutely. There is always plenty of benefits from competition, but it does take two to tango. So allow me to go to His Excellency, Minister Badawi. And let me ask you, Your Excellency, since it does take two to tango, the GCC clearly, as has proven with India and China and other countries, is open for business. Yet the free trade agreement, for example, with the EU has been lingering since 1990. What do you think the reason, and just to put the facts in place, the EU is the second trading partner with the GCC after China, so it is there up ranking high, but why do you think there is a gap? Is it a matter of priority for the EU that they don't look at the GCC as an important market, or is it sheer bureaucracy?
Thank you, Faisal. Actually, first of all, I want to thank you and thank the organizers of this very important event for giving the GCC the opportunity to come and speak out on behalf of the Secretariat. You asked a very good question, and the FTA actually is part of the points that I wanted to highlight in my short intervention here. But before we start this, or before we answer your question, we need to look at the Gulf as a whole and what does it represent to France. And France's relationship with the Gulf comes in two tracks. The first track is the bilateral one, France GCC, France each country, and the second one comes as EU GCC. And those tracks, they complete each other, and they work hand in hand, and you cannot separate them. You have to look at the picture as a whole, because we are, as GCC countries, involved with the international community as a whole. For example, the FTA and other issues. Also, France cannot be involved with us unless it comes to us through the EU. So you have to keep in mind that there are two tracks, and they entertain each other and they complete each other. The other point that I want to highlight is how reliable the Gulf countries have been internationally. We have been proven to every region that we are involved with that we are reliable partners. We are partners that you could trust us. We are serious partners, and when we do business, we do it without hidden agenda or without any sort of planning in a negative way. We are always in the positive side. We always come with a positive agenda. Our role internationally and globally and regionally is a very important role, and it has been proven that we are there for our region. We have done many plans. We have catered many issues and stood by so many of our Arab partners and Arab brothers in our region. One of the issues that we are very proud of is our serious plans toward our economical integration, Gulf economical integration. And this has four major events that, or four major elements that we are working on. The first one is our railway project, the Gulf Railway Project, which kicked off, and it will finish, I hope, by 26. This will tie the 6 countries with rail that will cater for passengers and for goods. The second one is that we are very proud of, which is our electricity connectivity and electricity grid. We are so connected with each other now in the Gulf that we just signed or kicked off on last Thursday a project with Iraq to provide Iraq with electricity. The other 2 elements which we are working hard on, and maybe Mr. Minister Al-Khurayef also could add to it, which is our custom union and our common market. Those are the challenges that we are now working on within the GCC, within the Secretariat and the 6 countries. This is where we can prove to the international community that we are one, we are a unit, and we are a common market where you can come and do business with us. Now, I want to shed light on the ambiguity sometimes that we see our friend in Europe see us. And this is a very important factors that will ease us in the Gulf and know that Europe is serious in dealing business with us. We have not seen FDI, European FDI in our countries as much as we do, even though our sovereign funds are working from Europe. We trust the European markets where many of our investment, foreign and sovereign fund operate in Europe. Number 2, the visa issue. We have been asking for a waiver of visa for the Schengen for more than 10 years now. And Europe still put obstacles in our face every time we ask for this. Any European from the EU can go to the airport, catch a flight, go to Kuwait, Saudi Arabia, UAE, Qatar, Oman, without any restrictions, whereas any Gulf person needs at least weeks to get his visa to come to. And it's a very important element. You cannot underestimate this factor. It shows trust, it shows partnership. Number 3, you mentioned the FTA. We are knocking the door on Europe. There are obstacles. There is a new version of FTA that Europe wants to introduce, which has elements that has nothing to do with business, and we are trying to talk to them with this. I want to finish by thanking the CEO of Business France when he said that he is encouraging French companies to go to and invest in our region. It's a great region. You know it very well. You just need to clarify the ambiguity that I just mentioned to you, and I think we have a great formula in doing business and integrating with each other. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Excellency. And I would like, thank you. And I would also like to thank you for really helping pave the way for the follow-up questions, both for Mr. Saint-Martin and for His Excellency, Minister Al-Khurayef. I'm gonna start from where you talked about GCC unity. Your Excellency, does GCC stand for Gulf Competition Council or Gulf Cooperation Council? In other words, is the ultimate amazing success that the Kingdom has seen in the past few years, as we see the fruition of the investment that has been done in Vision 2030, the rise in tourism, the rise in destination marketing of Saudi Arabia, foreign direct investment coming into Saudi Arabia, There seems to be an obsession, at least in financial newspapers abroad, that this has to be at the expense of Saudi Arabia's neighbor. So what is the point of view? Does a rising tide necessarily lift all boats, or is it going to be success on the expense of another?
Thank you for the question, and I would like to thank you all for being here. I'm really happy to join. Thanks for the organizers, Business France, for taking the time to bring something like this. I think also it's a very inspiring speech by His Excellency Le Maire about different things that I would like to point out. So the short answer is definitely it is cooperation. And today I think we are enjoying excellent times. If anybody here knows Saudi Arabia, he would realize that the times that we are living today in Saudi Arabia is just inspiring by all means. And it is the case in all different sectors, but I would like to focus on my area of expertise or responsibility at least, which is industry and mining. Today, one of the beauties about our vision is that it is laying the foundation of a clarity for all stakeholders who are interested to participate. So everything we are doing definitely is leading to prosperity to our people, is leading to making sure that our people are benefiting today and for the future. But at the same time, we are also mindful of the fact that our country is a small country, but have great resources. Our region is a small region when we talk about GCC and has great ambitions. Today, we believe that Saudi Arabia with GCC can compete globally. And to compete globally, they need to cooperate also and integrate in the region. Both our strategy in mining, our strategy in manufacturing or industry actually spills out where our strengths are and where we can play in the different parts of the supply chain. Not only that, we also are discussing how our neighboring countries can participate and benefit from the overall strategies that we have. I think there is no one who can believe that a sector like mining can be unlocked by a country on its own. You need the collaboration of all. So mining is a good example where we created what we call the Future Mineral Forum that His Excellency just mentioned. It is a platform to bring all stakeholders in Riyadh discussing the challenges, the opportunities, how we can cooperate. It is a platform for government, mining companies, service providers, academia, and financial institutions. This is a key element, and also it is a true demonstration of how Saudi Arabia is thinking to, while it is developing its sector, it is also participating in the supply chain disruption that is happening. It is participating in ensuring there is enough minerals for the transition. And this is an important, probably, example of what we are doing with regards to cooperation on a global level. On a regional level, we are discussing with all GCC countries how we can complement each other from a logistic point of view, from a processing point of view, from finished goods, from adding value in the different value chain. So definitely it's going to be a collaboration. An element of positive competition is always good also to ensure that when we do things, we are actually doing the right setup that allow us to be competitors on a global scale. Last year, Saudi Arabia was the president of had the presidency of the GCC. We made in our sector two major, I think, achievements. One is the common industrial law, which allows different countries and different investors from the Gulf and abroad to have a unified investment in law in industry. And the second is really an umbrella of our different strategies. All GCC countries have their own view of how they want to unlock the value of industry, and this overarching strategy is basing the discussion towards collaboration in the region, but being also competitive globally.
Thank you, Your Excellency. A quick follow-up question for you before I move to our other speakers. And I just have to say, I'm very lucky as a moderator to have this excellent panel. I just want to go back to my question. So do you agree with me that the shift in conversation, so maybe if you remember when we perhaps first met 3 or 4 years ago, the conversation in global media was more skeptical, is, okay, we hear you. Can actually Saudi Arabia achieve what it says it's going to be? Now, the conversation has shifted towards, oops, this is going to create damage for other people. So clearly the skepticism about whether or not Saudi Arabia can achieve it has changed. And if that's the case, as they say, with great powers comes great responsibility. So Saudi Arabia is doing what's good, definitely for Saudi Arabia. But how could this economic prosperity, this stability in the region be beneficial for the region as a whole? But as we are here in France, how could this opportunity be beneficial for France and Europe?
Well, when my first visit to Davos as a minister in 2020, and my latest visit to Davos 2023, the discussion have changed dramatically. I mean, in 2020, a lot of people are, accusing Saudi Arabia of talking too much and not delivering. Today, it is clear for everyone that we talk the talk and walk the walk. We are actually delivering. We have great stories to tell of how we are doing different things. And if you look at our different strategies, you will realize that the strategies definitely take into account our national interest, the way we want to develop and benefit from our natural resources, be it oil and gas or minerals, our geographical location. But also, most of our strategies are also mindful of how can we as a country participate in the global community's challenges, different challenges, supply chain disruption, net zero targets, environment, and so on. And I'm happy to hear also His Excellency Le Maire talking about that today GCC is no longer a supplier of oil. It is a real participation, participating in all difficulties of global community. And we are part of the solution. And this is probably one thing that we need to always think about, is how can we change the mindset of the large countries to think about Saudi Arabia and the GCC not in the form of a supplier-customer sense, but in a more partnership approach. How can we work together to solve the problems of today, but also to ensure that we are solving the problems for tomorrow? I think the relation of the countries with Saudi Arabia and with GCC must change from a concept of supplier-customer to a partnership. That mindset shift will definitely mean a lot to those who want to come to Saudi Arabia, who want to invest for the future, be part of what we are doing, understand it very well, challenge what we are doing, and work with us to improve how we can reach the targets.
Thank you, Your Excellency. I take that as a segue to go straight to Mr. Sam Martin, and I would like to combine the comments that you've made with the comments that His Excellency Jassim Badawi said, and direct the question to you. There's a clear opportunity for France in the GCC. There's an opportunity for the GCC in France. Yet what we've heard so far on the panel is a delayed FTA agreement. The foreign direct investment isn't where as it should be. as has Excellency just alluded now, there still seems to be a perception or a look towards business as a supplier or as a vendor, as opposed to a real deep and broad relationship. So my question is, how could Business France tackle all these issues? And frankly, apart from lobbying for it, what tools do you have to enforce this? Because this is clearly in the interest of your country.
Yeah, thank you very much for your question, and I would like to enhance what His Excellency Minister said, because I totally agree that the next step when we are talking about trade relationship between France and GCC country is to go from buyer-supplier relationship through a real partnership, meaning it's not only about trade, but it's also about technological partnership, for example, M&A partnership, etc. So it's a deeper partnership that we have to focus on, and this is part of our job, of course, in Business France. To answer you directly, as we are talking about global challenge in this roundtable, I would like to focus a bit on energy transition to give a very concrete example and to explain you what Business France as a government agency concretely do for French SMEs and for GCC investors. And I will give you just some very talking example for you to understand the kind of operation we can create for companies. Because at the end, what you have to remember from me is that we work for business, for companies, French company and GCC country companies, of course. For example, as an evidence, Business France organized what we call the French Clean Tech Days. French Clean Tech Days is an operation, a specific operation. Then we gather French SMEs and startups, of course, in the field, in the sector of clean tech, and we make them go and discover all the GCC market. We make them know the different countries, depending on the opportunities they can have there. And we organize that in the frame of the World Future Energy Summit in Abu Dhabi, for example. So we use a specific local event, which is in this case in Abu Dhabi, and we organize a roadshow for these French SMEs to make them connect local business. Another example we can do at Business France, of course, you know, in France and in the GCC country, energy from nuclear plants and nuclear energy plays a key role, of course, in the energy mix. So we support French companies and French SMEs directly involved in this sector to export, but also, as we were talking about partnership, to create partnership there when we are talking about nuclear energy and nuclear plants. It's an event that we built up a few years ago called eFusion. And what is very interesting is that we organize it with the French sector, of course, our own Comité Stratégique de Filière, but also with the Emirati operator called ENEC. So we use also the both institutions to make this bridge to create partnership for our company. So it's a public-private cooperation that Business France build also for your success. And while I'm talking to you this morning, at this very moment, our team in Dubai, directed by Axel Barou, present here today, we are launching the French Solar and Sustainable Expedition towards the COP28 that Bruno Le Maire mentioned. So it's very concrete. Exactly right now, there are some French companies we support and we make them travel in this French Solar and Sustainable Expedition with a partnership, public-private, once again, which is the Dubai Electricity and Water Authorities for the public perspective, and Total Energy, for example, from the private French perspective, supporting and partnering this operation. So in terms of ODI, when France exports, we can organize very concrete operation to make our companies, SMEs, connect and know better the market in and of course, in their own interest, but from a partnership perspective, and not only from a trade perspective. And this is very important because it answers the concern of Minister, and it's very important that we go forward exactly in this way. And from an FDI perspective, of course, I won't tell the same words as Minister Le Maire, but it is true that our goals and our priority gather. It is true that green transition, green energy are our main focus from the GCC countries, from France as well. So when you have common strategy, of course it's easier to talk with the same language and to have common interest. But it's easy to say it, it's more difficult to make it concrete, so you have to show to the other one what is your force, what is your advantage. In France, I told it, it's France 2030, which is a huge public investment plan, 54 billion euros, which is the highest and the strongest public investment plan in France we have seen. And of course, for example, in KSA, you have exactly the same priority for reindustrialization, green industrialization, and of course, settling a growing number of factories, etc., etc. So we have the same interest, so we can invest in each other. And of course, GCC investment are welcome here, and that's our job as well at Business France to be there. We have offices in Dubai, in Riyadh, in Qatar, and we are there to make our staff meet local investors to make them choose France. So we have both way job, and it is very important as well that all the people here based in the GCC countries that still don't know our teams of Business France there, to meet them and to understand more how great can they make deals in France for them.
No, thank you for that, but allow me to push back. And there is no question that in the last short period of time, Business France has left its mark. You have your offices, you have your teams. The issue here is convincing investors or businesses to move here for something that probably has nothing to do with your authority. I'm referring to the bureaucracy and legislation. From a newsroom perspective, from somebody who watches, France 24 or Euronews or CNN, all we see is gilets jaunes, all we see is protests because you wanted to increase the retirement age for 2 years, when you have countries like the United States where an 80-year-old president wants to run for 4 more years. So, you can see how it's a matter of perspective. I mean, what's the big deal? Let people work 2 more years. What I'm trying to say is it has a lot to do with the sentiment. And my fear is all the amazing work that you are doing, trying to convince companies to come over, building the case. How much sway do you have on the legislation or the regulation? Because as far as an observer looks at it, this seems to be the major obstacle. We love France, we love French culture, we love French manufacturing quality, but it's very difficult to do business.
Well, thank you for loving France first. And we have some MPs here who could answer about the legislation part, but of course we are lobbying, of course, to make France more and more attractive. But to be very serious and concrete, I understand that you talk about gilets jaunes, about strikes, and about what you can see on TV, but in reality, we have more and more projects in France. For the 4th year in a row, France is the leader country in Europe in terms of FDI. And Gilets jaunes were in 2018, for example, or 2019. We increase year after year, 2018, 2019, 2020, 2021, 2022. Every year we have more and more FDIs. And year on year we have more and more jobs directly created by FDIs. So I understand from a sentimental and TV show perspective what you say, but the reality is different. The reality is that we attract more and more projects because when you're a businessman and when you're an investor, what you want to know is that is France more attractive in terms of tax rate? Yes. Is France more attractive in terms of labor law? Yes. Is France more attractive in terms of jobs and skills, yes. Is France more attractive in terms of what we can have about industrial sites ready to use? Yes, etc., etc. And what the government did since 2017 is way more important in terms of attractiveness than some images you can see on TV, because it's normal in democracy that you can have people who disagree. It's not my job to say it. You have some senators here who are more able to tell it than me. But what is true is that the investor is rational. And at the end, what is rational is number, ROI, and how do you find skills to develop your business in France. And this works more and more every year.
So maybe for... Thank you, Your Excellency. Perception does matter. It's more sentiment does matter. It's why people prefer particular countries. Maybe in the next edition of this forum, we will have some legislators and bring some businessmen and let them argue until one side convinces the other. Last but certainly not least, and I want to thank you, Anne, for your patience with us. You come from the Foreign Ministry. His Excellency Jassim Badawi talked about a few things, including the Schengen visa. And let me say this, let me just choose my words carefully. You are responsible for the MENA region in the ministry. And just like when we talk about Europe, we don't, Europe, as a continent, yes, it's a continent, but different parts of Europe are very different. I note that the EU has appointed its first ever envoy to the Gulf countries. And this is very recent, which is a very welcome development. Given the economic prosperity and economic boom that's happening in the region and the stability that's happening in the GCC, don't you think your department should have its own focus on the GCC countries? Because we all hope that the rest of the Middle East catches up with this prosperity and the economy, but I would imagine a lot of your job would be firefighting in countries in the Levant or North Africa that are facing problems, as opposed to working with Business France or businesses in the region to help promote investment and French interests in the region. So the question is, shouldn't there be a division dedicated to the nature of the Gulf region in your ministry?
Thank you very much. And first, I would like to reiterate how happy we are to have His Excellency Minister El-Khorayef and His Excellency Secretary General El-Badawi with us here in Paris today, and also all our friends and partners from the Gulf. I think that this meeting is a sign of this changing mindset that His Excellency the Minister was calling for. We really have one message, and this is something I would like you and participants to take away with you, is that France is really committed to build a partnership that is a true partnership. So, and that is a partnership that is both strategic and comprehensive, and with each individual GCC countries, as well as with the GCC as a whole. And we do this as France. I mean, we very much care about France's relationship with the region and each member states in the GCC, but also as France as part of the European Union. And we've been a leading country in the elaboration of this new partnership of the EU with the Gulf countries that has led among other things, to the appointment of Mr. Luigi Di Maio as the new special envoy for European Union to the region. We also have the EU has adopted, as you may know, a strategy last year during the French presidency of the European Union Council, and this is not a coincidence. We really pushed for it. And we're also pushing the EU to extend and enlarge its footprint in the region. And we have also French diplomats very much involved in that. We actually, the new EU delegate to Saudi Arabia is going to be a French diplomat. And we also very much in favor of the liberalization of the visa. It's a complex matter. We can't do it alone, but this is really something that is now really in the works for good. It's taking a bit more time, but I'm very hopeful on this issue. You were mentioning the way we organized at the French MFA. It's a very, standard division, geographical division. We have the MENA region, which is a very large region, and we have subdivisions. And I want to reassure you that we have a specific subdivision that is dealing with the Gulf countries, which are really a huge priority nowadays for us. You started by reminding us the unprecedented nature of the external shocks that we've been experiencing in the past few years, COVID, now the Ukraine war, which really stresses the global and systemic nature of the challenges and the transformations that we are facing. And I think Minister Le Maire really stressed that one of the main challenges that we have to face together is the challenge of sustainability. Sustainability of our way of living, of producing, of consuming. And this means that the public goods that we need for this sustained prosperity, which are, clean air, water, clean environment, accessible, available energy, public health, livable climate, but also connectivity and the digital world, the functional digital world. All this, these public goods now are global goods. And this is where we need each other, and we see that the GCC countries are at the center of the geopolitical and geo-economic transformations of our world today. And the challenges are not only economic, they're also political and geopolitical. On the security level, we see that threats and crises are all interconnected. I mean, addressing them in isolation is not an option anymore. And we also see that the international order is now very much an international disorder, and we are facing unprecedented challenge to the rules and the structures that were established after World War II. And this, again, means that we have really an urgent need to re-inject cooperation, true spirit of cooperation and partnership at the center of our strategies. And this is really what we want to do with the GCC. And we have very comprehensive relations with each GCC member state. And we are in the way of elaborating a plan of action between France and the GCC as an institution. And Secretary General Boudaoui is in Paris and will have fruitful, I'm sure, discussions tomorrow in the MFA on this matter. When I'm saying we want a comprehensive partnership, I mean that we do this on security. And here, a key word, I think, is reliability. You challenged the president of Business France on the attractivity of France, economically speaking, and business on business issues. But I think that one thing that we offer as France is reliability as a strategic partner. We've shown it in the past few years to our partners in the Gulf, and they know it. And we also are very much focusing on energy transition, and the COP28, I think, is really a big priority for all of us today, as well as on sustainability of our economic development globally. And you may know that next week in France we will have an important summit for a new financial model that President Macron is hosting, and we are expecting a very high-level guests from GCC countries for that.
Thank you. I think a very clear message, Your Excellency, about true partnership and reliability. And speaking of reliability and French products, we would like to thank you for your most valuable export, Karim Benzema, who signed with Al-Ittihad in my hometown, actually, of Jeddah. And we wish him a successful career, and that him and the other players that are joining us uplifts the whole Saudi league. Madam Sesna, you had a follow-up. I will hear from you before I go for my final round of questions.
Yes, thank you. I just wanted to stress one thing. You asked a question to Mr. Kouaïef, how other countries, GCC countries or France, can benefit from the new strategy the Saudi government is implementing. But I just wanted to say that French enterprise already benefit from it, because as I said in the beginning, they are very involved in renewable energy, in tourism, for instance, and in waste management, in many fields that are focused by the Vision 2030. So partnership and cooperation are not only, they are institutional partnership and cooperation, but it's not the whole scope of cooperation. Cooperation is also concrete cooperation between private companies, and this is already the case. And another thing I wanted to focus on, you should ask for the next event, you should ask foreign investors who was already invested in France, what is their perception of France. And you will see that they don't have the image of a Gilets jaunes country. They have really another image, and they know very well France because they are in France, and they underline the quality of education, the commitment of employees, the infrastructure, the quality of infrastructure, and many things which explain that we attract so many projects in France since a few years, and as the survey made by EY shows it.
Well, I will do something even better. You have it as commitment from Arab News and Arab News French that we will do a survey to see the appetite and the perceptions of business. And by the time we do this event next year, wherever it's going to be, we will be sharing the results and having a discussion with you. And that is a commitment. I want to go to, just to show that we mean business, as His Excellency said. Your Excellency, was I being too harsh on France? You outlined in your opening remarks a lot of opportunities, a lot of industries. We know for sure that the French are very active in Al-Ula, for example, in the archaeology and the restoration of the sites in Al-Ula. But at least in your ministry or in the mining industry or the sectors that you oversee, who are the, if we want to call them, the key players or the rock stars of French industry that are cooperating, for example, with Saudi Arabia?
Yes, you were very harsh on France, so and we are guests here, so we have to be also. But it's true. I mean, yesterday I had an excellent meeting with my counterpart, the Minister of Industry, and when we look at our strategy, for example, we laid out in our strategy 12 different sectors. These 12 different sectors can be grouped in 3 groups. One is resilient sectors, where we are focusing on things like food security, pharmaceuticals, military, and so on. The second sectors is the sectors where we see we can add value within the country. How can we add more value to our petrochemical? How can we go downstream in petrochemical? How can we do more in mining, in processing, in producing high value product rather than just sell raw materials? And the third category of the industrial sectors that we have chosen is future. How can we position Saudi Arabia to be a player in the future and not to miss out as we have in the past, where we can position Saudi Arabia in advanced manufacturing, for example, automation, in the space area and so on. So if I look at all of this, we can find very strong partners in France doing across the board. Today in pharmaceuticals, and I'm responsible for a mandate in the government for localization of vaccine and biopharmaceuticals, and there's great collaboration with a lot of French companies in automation and advanced manufacturing, where we see that the future of our industry is going to be very much betting on technology, on adopting AI, 3D printing, additive manufacturing, and so on. There's great solutions that are available here in France. And I think to probably close, I think the genuine interest we have seen from the different partners towards the positive view they have on the country and how the country can be not only a strong market, but also a window to different markets, a gateway to other markets. We see Saudi Arabia becoming an industrial powerhouse, but also we see it becoming a strong logistical hub for different players. So I think we have great discussions, and today we can see on the ground that there is action taking place. What I want to say, I mean, I used to be a salesman, so I will not miss this opportunity also to sell our country and invite everyone to understand more and more what we are offering in our strategy. And please reach out to us directly or through the organizers here, and we'll be very happy to explain and work together with all interested parties to see how they can navigate the system and come to Saudi Arabia. The beauty of the nature of FDIs we are looking for, it's not money. We are looking at a long-term relation. We are looking at companies who are willing to come, bring technology and grow technology in Saudi Arabia. RDI in Saudi Arabia, the research, development, and innovation ecosystem is developing greatly to allow Saudi Arabia to be at the forefront of the technologies of advancement in the future, and not only to import. So this is the invitation, and I'm sure what I'm saying also applies to all GCC countries alike.
So thank you, Your Excellency. Clear words of endorsement there for French business opportunities in Saudi Arabia. I want to also talk, we've talked a lot about the opportunities, but we still have a few minutes left, and I want to talk about the challenges and threats in the region. As I said, as we pointed out, yes, the GCC perhaps has its own characteristics, but we are in a troubled neighborhood. I want to talk to Your Excellency, Mr. Jassim, and Ms. Anne about the Baghdad conference, because, of course, you cannot thrive as a region if you have troubled regions. We've heard from Your Excellency about the electricity project, connection project to Baghdad. How could France and the GCC cooperate to spread this positivity in the region? And what will be the impact from a business perspective? Starting with you, Your Excellency.
Thank you, Faisal. I think the Jeddah summit, Saudi Arabia, the Arab summit, has some serious indicators of positivity in the region. And we have not seen an atmosphere, even though there are a lot of challenges that we have to deal with, a lot of challenges that we have to fix and manage. But the atmosphere of the Jeddah summit was extremely positive, and the outcome and the easiness and the comfortable atmosphere there was great. So this reflects on many files in the region. Iraq is part of it. Iraq is a strategic partner to the Gulf countries. We have engaged with it in so many times, either bilaterally, each country with Iraq, or as a GCC. The integration with them with the electricity grid is a major sign of cooperation. There is also a cooperation on bilateral basis with electricity with other countries with Iraq. It's not only the GCC, but some other GCC countries might also be engaged with Iraq in electricity. There is a trade flow. There is security arrangement and political arrangement with Iraq. Iraq is a very important partner. Now the Baghdad conference, we've seen two editions of it, one in Baghdad and one in Jordan. Now I think it's going back again to Baghdad in December, as we heard. It is a platform that provides an opportunity to neighboring countries and countries with interest to discuss the current situation in Iraq and the future of Iraq. The Prime Minister of Sudani is doing a wonderful job. He's getting a lot of support from every GCC country. We think he is in the right track. The cooperation among the different Iraqi parts is in the right track, and you hear nothing but support from GCC and GCC countries to Iraq and Iraq stability and the well-being of the Iraqi people. This is also a very important aspect that we look after, is to make sure that the Iraqi people do get what they deserve from a social and security
I want to take the last remark from Anne regarding the French participation, because in the Baghdad conference, President Macron attended. And just to follow up on what His Excellency said, so is the event happening in December? And what are the outcomes that your ministry is hoping for?
Sure. The logic behind the Baghdad conference process is that we have a shared interest in a lasting and sustained de-escalation of tensions in the Gulf and in the Middle East. I think this is something that we have in common. And the first priority when it first started in August 2021 was for neighboring countries to provide support to the stability of Iraq, which is a central country for the region, and it provided a platform of an unprecedented format, because many countries that were not on speaking terms for years were together at the same table, and we think that this has helped helped consolidating the dialogues that were open between various countries participating, and Iran in particular. So we think that beyond this very important role as a platform of dialogue, which is certainly a factor in bringing down tension, the Baghdad conference can now focus on promoting concrete cooperation projects, because we know that populations have common needs, and so we discussed previously energy. His Excellency mentioned the electricity project. We also have extreme climate and natural phenomenon such as sandstorms that are plaguing several of the countries of the region, and there is a need for maybe mutualization of means to face and manage natural disasters. We need to promote connectivity, and I think that what has worked in Europe, Europe was based initially on the idea that it's through trade, through industry, through concrete projects of cooperation that you build a lasting stability. And this is very much what we want to do. This is what we are discussing, and that is what will be happening in the third edition of this summit by the end of the year.
Thank you so much. I think we have to congratulate our panelists for an amazing opening session this morning. We went through quite a lot in just an hour. Just a quick wrap up. Business France is open. Business France is present in the GCC. They are doing everything they can to help facilitate investments and move. The Ministry of Foreign Affairs considers the GCC a true partner, not just a transactional partner. There are logistical challenges and regulation challenges with the EU, with the Schengen visa, but that's up for discussion. The world isn't just China and India. France is pretty much still there. We have an endorsement from His Excellency, the Minister of Industry, about French and the French opportunities that are available in Saudi Arabia, and that the economic prosperity in Saudi Arabia is there to help the region and indeed Europe. On that note, thank you very much and wish you a very successful conference. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Faisal. Thanks, Your Excellencies, for this very interesting conversation that you have. And now it's time to delve into the compelling reasons why the Gulf region has emerged as a thriving hub for international businesses. We need to move. Hi. Yes, yes, it's just right now. I'm just about to introduce you. We will do like 14 minutes. Well, I just want to, I'm afraid we are running a little bit late, so I want to invite our panelists for our next panel. Thank you so much. Thank you. Allah yafik. Merci. So, huh? Yes. So as I just mentioned, now it's time to delve into the compelling reasons why the GCC region has emerged as a thriving hub for international business. I invite now Pablo Martin Dolin, Dean of HEC Paris at Qatar, our moderator for next panel, and his esteemed guests. So, Pablo. to start our next panel, I invite you all to take your seat, please. Ladies and gentlemen, I invite you to take your seats in order to start our next panel. We will have the opportunity to network in the networking session just right away after our panel. So I just invite you to take your seats to start the next panel. To you, Pablo.
If you do not mind, we are about to start. All right, welcome everybody. Ahlan wa sahlan, marhaban bikum. It's especially to those who have flown from far away. It's a pleasure to be here today with you. My name is Pablo Martin de Holland. I am the Dean of HEC Paris in Qatar. For those who are not familiar with HEC Paris, it's a school that has been providing superb management education for the past 140 years, and of course, has been very involved with the Arab world since the very beginning. We have been in Qatar and in the region since 2010, and we are educating the people who are going to be doing the transformations in the Visions 2030 in the different countries on the world. If you're going to transform the economy, you need people, you need leaders, men and women, and that is what we do. But today we're going to be talking about business and the business environment in particular. The Gulf countries have experienced significant changes. It seems that if you go to sleep, you wake up, there is a new building. That change has been materialized in infrastructure, in museums, stadium, trains, in a fascinating change that we have all seen down there. It is propped by diversification efforts, of course, infrastructure development. It is also FDI in money or technology, as it was said in the previous panel. So I'm going to ask my panelists quite briefly, but one by one, please, to tell me what are your perspectives on the current economic landscape of your country and the region? You all come from different countries, but you have a sense of what the region is doing. And more specifically, what strategies can business deploy to actually capture all the opportunities that are happening right now in the GCC? Maybe you want to start from... Would you please introduce yourself so you tell a little bit who you are?
Absolutely.
Nicole.
Thank you, Pablo, and thank you to everyone here for the attendance. It's an amazing day, first day of 2 days. Thank you very much for Business Trans. My name is Nathalie Demol. I am at Qatar Hospitality, and I am here as representative for Cadran. Cadran is the business economic circle for France and Qatar. We are a do tank. I know that we have think tanks here, but we are really here to give pragmatic solutions to enhance synergies and business relationship between both France and Qatar communities. So this is where I am and why we are here. And now I'd like, Pablo, if you don't mind, to try to reply to this nice question, because we all want to know how we can help and what is Qatar today in the region. So we know that it is true with FIFA World Cup, Qatar has presented a significant, robust growth in 2022 with more than 4.8%, according to World Bank. And even though now the World Cup is over and we may see a slight slowdown, still the figures are high, and the World Bank says that For 2023, the figures are around 3.3. But this is more enhanced by Qatar National Vision 2030. And what is that? It's an ambitious strategic diversification that started in 2008 in the Gulf by Qatar, the first country in the Gulf to really try this diversification in all industries. What are the industries? It's not only about infrastructure. It is also, and most probably, about health, education, technology, sports, and tourism. So this is where Qatar is going tomorrow. And this is very important not only for the country, but also for the region itself. Now, Qatar has some national champions that are key industry and international players, such as Qatar Airways and Qatar Hospitality in the hospitality business. And how does this work? This works because within the national vision of Qatar for 2030, there is a real business-friendly relationship that is growing. Therefore, if I can say in a nutshell, it is a good opportunity to do business in Qatar. And if I need to talk about, and I would like to talk about the French and Qatar real business relationship, where is it now? Well, it's very strong and it's diversifying. We all know about the Doha Metro. We all know about the Lusail tram. But we also hear and start hearing about smart cities. And this is where French companies throughout the years have completely invested and diversified. On the other hand, we also see that Qatar is investing truly and strongly in France. France is the second country within Europe where Qatar invests. Therefore, everything is not only about World Cup, and it doesn't stop there. On the contrary, diversification for Qatar is in technology, in sports, education. So we see challenges. What are the challenges for tomorrow, in fact? It's about innovation and energy transition. And this is where French companies are here, and we see them. This is where also Cadran, as the business circle, is here and would like to foster this momentum. And Cadran is committed, in fact, in creating and catalyzing the synergies between both countries. I'd like to invite the public to download, if you can, of course, the very interesting study that has been done between HEC and Cadran, and where you can find information and detailed information on the scope, the structure of the synergies between the countries and between French and Qatar communities. This is where you'll find us.
Madame de Boll, you didn't say it, but would you say that Qatar is open for business?
It is, and it's not now. It has been since a decade now, and it's still going to be. Yes, indeed.
Excellent.
Thank you.
So how about if we move west? Mr. Mohammed bin Laden, you are the president of the... Oh, you have your mic. Oh, there you go.
Is it working? Hi, hello.
You're president of the Franco-Saudi Business Council.
I will just say 2 words in French, if I allow. Ils m'ont contraint presque de parler français, chose à laquelle je vais m'astreindre ce matin. So, okay, so actually Saudi Arabia was... it is. So Saudi Arabia actually was the pioneer, because I've heard Qatar 2030, France 2030, but we've started back in 2016 with the Vision 2030. We're today halfway, and we've already have projection for 2050 with numbers, KPIs, and targets. The aim of Vision 2030 actually is based on few pillars, but the aim is to diversify the Saudi economy. So the economy was actually laying on mostly a single source of revenue, which is the oil export. And at that time, the Saudi Arabia, from its local and domestic consumption, will burn most of its oil production, which was basically the revenue of the country, we will burn it locally, either for the transportation, cars, trucks, the industry, or to produce energy. Then the vision has been launched in 2016 through many programs, many verticals. One of them is the tourism. One of them is the energy transition. We're lucky, it has been said this morning, because to perform an energy transition, you should have sufficient revenue to be able to invest, which is the case. And we're doing the largest renewable energy project. The information this morning wasn't that accurate because the largest solar farm is in Saudi Arabia nowadays. And the tourism is one of them, the energy transition, the industry, the minister was saying this morning, the mining sectors, and we're really going through all the sectors for this. So and we've launched mega projects. This is what is today a reality. We can see them breaking ground. Neom is one of them, Gidea, the Red Sea, and many others. And the list is very long. So it's the engine of the Saudi economy nowadays. There is a lot to do, and I think we have sufficient time, or not sufficient time, I don't know how you give me, to go through those points and what we're doing. Actually, in Saudi Arabia, what's very important just to start with this, it has been said in the previous session. So we have a strategy of calming down the tension in the region, and we've been very active in this. It's a strategy of appeasement because we believe, and you all know from a business perspective, that the capital and the investors need that. But also, they need a fair, fast judicial system where we guarantee the investments, and when we have a court decision taken, to be able to implement it and execute it. I myself am a lawyer and a practitioner, and I can assure you with all the progress which has been done on this front. Concretely, we've issued a new investment law. So we're treating equally the foreign investors as if they were Saudis, and this is very important. We have put in place a lot of incentives, incentives from a tax perspective, incentive from a what we call it Saudization perspective. So you're not necessarily you don't have to comply with the Saudization rate at the beginning of your setup in KSA. We have put in place many vehicles to finance your projects, even if you're a foreign investor. We've put really a bench of setups and elements to encourage the investment. I've heard since this morning maybe the word FDIs 100 times, but it's not all about FDIs. FDI is important, but behind the investors and behind the companies, there is the human factor. And in Saudi Arabia, we're evaluating and we're cherishing the human capital. And this is, again, one of the most important pillar and programs of the Vision 2030. It is called quality of life. If you go today in Saudi Arabia, you will notice the difference of the new Saudi, the difference in the society, how much we improved, how much we opened the society, how much we unlocked the young population. We have 34 million residents in Saudi Arabia, the population, out of which 19 are Saudis. And out of those 19, 70% represent a population age or bracket below 30 years old. So this is our capital. It's not the oil, it is not the sun, it is not the wind, it is the true capital behind all this. I think I will give you the floor, but I'm happy to explain further during our session this morning.
Thank you very much.
Thank
I think it's really important, the human capital, obviously, and the push of all the countries in the region to educate people, not just traditionally, but also people who were excluded in the past, mostly women, who are now the majority of careers, with the exception of very technical ones. They're the majority of students, and also they perform better, as is the case in many parts of the world too. So continuing, we have, well, Jamal, you want to maybe a few comments about the regulatory framework, the opportunities, how you see business opportunities in the next few years in the Gulf and in the UAE?
Thank you, Pablo, for moderating this. First of all, I'm very honored and pleased to be taking part of this prestigious event and telling the story of UAE, how we have embarked on phenomenal growth since inception of the nation. I would probably attribute this, it's not 5 years ago or 10 years ago where we have witnessed growth. We see the numbers. Back in 1975, our GDP was close to 15 billion. Today in 2022, we are close to $500 billion. So you would see the exponential growth in the GDP is phenomenal, unheard of in Middle East. And the reason being, I believe, have the leadership of UAE from day one has set a very high goals to achieve, to transform from oil-based economy to diversified economy is not an easy job. And I think maybe this is one of the most important reasons UAE today rank the second largest economy in Middle East. I think because we had successfully executed a very sound, diversified economy strategy. Moving from oil and gas to multi-sectors, diversified economy, I think has helped UAE today to be very attractive. I would say humbly, number one FDI attraction today in Middle East and North Africa and West Asia is UAE for the 5th year. This is according to UNCTAD, latest statistic released. Second reason, probably I would give a high percentage to how quick and agile that we had successfully changed the rules of the game. Today, foreigners can set up 100% ownership in the UAE. I think we were very quick to adopt a very flexible, lenient rule of law, if you will. We have continuously changing the rules of the game, continuously as we speak. I give you a case in point. Last year, the year before, during COVID, we have changed at least 100 legislations, 100 laws that touch the heart of business. And I think being quick, and I think we used to hear from Davos, the largest eat the smallest, or the biggest eat the small economies. I think now the theme has changed to whoever is faster. And I really admire what the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia has done, because they had really set as well a very ambitious, strategic, moving on 2030 plan that has been in the circle of economy in the Middle East and the world. I think we should really give applause to the Saudis, how successfully they are executing a sound strategy, transforming their economies, because Middle East and the Gulf countries are characterized as an emerging market. What emerging market means? Emerging market means there's a lot of potential. Now the US and Europe looking for growth. Honestly speaking, the growth in Europe and the US are in single digit. 1%, 2%, or 3% is very small in terms of percentage. But of course, their economy volume When you multiply it, it's a huge growth, but still marginal. US, Europe, China, they are looking to invest in the emerging market. And I think the most dynamic market today is the Gulf, to be honest with you. Capital is there. Natural resources are there. And the potential to grow the medical sector, the transport sector, we've heard His Excellency, the Secretary General of the GCC, the train that will cross the 6 nations. We used to hear this 30 years ago, but it's never been realized. Now we're talking reality. So I really wholeheartedly believe the Gulf region is, yes, rich in resources. When it comes to specific of UAE and Saudi Arabia, and even Qatar, honestly speaking, and Kuwait, also they used to be the pioneers and the leaders in the regions, and they are catching up. But I think Saudis and the Emiratis are really executing a very sophisticated a leapfrog, if that's a good description, because really it's the ministries have become now workshops, working around the clock 24/7, transforming their economy. So yes, UAE has successfully and yet to be seen. We are heading from $500 billion GDP. By 2030, we are aiming to be a $3 trillion GDP, and we hope to reach that. Thank you.
Wow, that is indeed very, very impressive. As the Financial Times put it, the countries, they all go as fast as they can, but they're full of a group of young people in a hurry. And I think it's a nice way of putting it. People who want to go fast, and they're young, and they have an ambition to build a country. The thing is that sometimes, when we look from the West, or from the global North, if you prefer, when we looked at the Gulf, we tend to use a metric that is not very, very good. The West believes that the rich country is developed and that the poor country is developing. They're neither. I mean, again, what it is up to you to tell me, but it's not truly developed. They're not truly developed countries, but at the same time, they're not developing nations. There's something different. And that is what we're trying to talk here. But we discuss a lot about the context, and I guess we have an expert on taxes. I think taxes are central. They are inevitable as death, and as Churchill would have said, but Disraeli, actually. There you go. So tell me, what do you think about the taxation, the perspective on taxation, the impact on firms for the next few years for the GCC?
Thank you very much, Pablo, for moderating this, and thank you for having us on this very important conference, and thanks for Business France for arranging all of this logistics and getting everyone together. My name is Sharif Shawi. I'm working as a tax consultant for PwC. I lead a cluster of 3 countries in that domain. Since we have talking about Saudi, Qatar, and UAE as well, so perhaps a bit on Kuwait as well, with the Vision 2035. And then immediately we go to the tax part that you asked for, about the rules and the regulations that are coming up. Kuwait is also getting up and rising up. We have the Vision 2035, and we have lots of potential. We have a new parliament, has been settled last week. A new government is coming up. And there are many mega projects that we are seeing as well on this. When it comes to the tax side and the rules and the regulations in the region, I think there are too many happenings there. Lots of updates and lots of development in each jurisdictions and in each country, as well as on the international platforms as well. So if we look at, for example, UAE, we started to have, for the first time ever, to have the corporate income tax coming up by June, to be finalized this year and enacted by 2024. The tax rate is at 9%. We have also seen before the value-added tax, which is coming on the consumptions and for the end customers, and that has been at the rate of 5%. That has been there for some time. Saudi Arabia as well has applied and implemented the value-added tax 3 or 4 years ago. And the corporate income tax as well, and the zakat and so on, is implemented in Saudi Arabia. Many legislations are coming up And as you can see on the international platform as well, there is now what we call the Pillar 2, or the minimum effective tax rates for countries for each jurisdictions. And that is why and how many of the GCC countries are starting to adopt and to cope with those international interpretations. Maybe I don't want to make it very complicated, but perhaps you have heard about the BEPS, the base erosions and the profit shiftings. And in the past, we used to have, these tax regulations based on certain criteria. So you look at the company, the permanent establishment, the place of doing the business, the management, the substance of the company where it operates, and the corporate to ensure what rules and regulations applies for it. But nowadays, it is totally different. If you look at companies like Netflix, Amazon, Uber, where they are and which countries they should be paying tax for. The digital transformation becomes really witnessed big time in many of the countries around the globe. And there is no really real place of business. It's now about application. It's now about platform, and it's now about online e-commerce and lots of happening in this domain. This Pillar 2 comes with how to manage and regulate the tax and the reforms in those countries. And that is why when you look at the opportunities in the Gulf region, it is not only about the growth or the infrastructure or the oil and gas, which is coming up, but it is as well, in parallel with that, the rules and the regulations and the laws that are coming up to have a mainframe, actually, and to have the governance for all of this. So there is a lot that is happening. Many, we have, for the first time ever, heard, it was not the case at all that we have taxes in the GCC, but now we have it in Saudi Arabia, we have it in Kuwait, we have it in UAE for the first time for 2024, and it is there in Qatar as well, and many other countries in the Gulf region. So I think how to manage the business and how to make to pave the way for businesses to cope between those international interpretations and legislations with the local sovereignty of the countries and the local taxes is really the challenge, and is really the opportunity for businesses from France and from around the world on how to develop and set up their business properly in the Gulf region.
We know the countries are different, but would you say the taxes in general, are competitive? Would you say they're uncompetitive? What would be your assessment of the region from a taxation perspective?
Well, the trend now and what is happening globally is that, as I said, this Pillar 2, and it is coming to have an equity and to have an even sort of treatment and a comparative sort of accountability when it comes to paying the taxes in respective jurisdictions. And it is coming at a 15% minimum tax rate, yeah? So when you look at the countries per specific, each country, they have the sovereignty of assessing what is better for them, depending on many criteria, to help and support the businesses, to do the investments, to attract more of multinationals and so on. So you find countries at 9%, you find others at 10%, and you find others at 20% within the Gulf region. The average rate, yes, there is a comparison that can be happening, but it's not only about tax to attract the business. There are too many other criteria, on the repatriations of funds, the financing, the accessibility to the markets, the availability of resources and infrastructure. So there is too many factors to consider. But when it comes to comparability about the taxes, yes, it is internationally coming to have like an even position for all the countries, not only in the Gulf, but around the world. And in the specific country in the Gulf, there are many specific for each government and the sovereignty of applying taxes for their GCC nationals, as well as the multinationals and foreign investors who come and do business in those countries.
So thank you very much. That's very, very insightful. And now let me turn from taxes to financing. Khaled, you work for a large bank, GIB. And what is your perspective on finances and financing firms? And if you're going to make it common, I'm going to make it difficult for you. What do you think about inflation, which is affecting everybody? And of course, in the country has a peg to the dollar. Inflation is imported, and of course, is affecting that. So how do you see the situation? And I will ask you, if you don't mind, to also think about the small and medium enterprises, which are of interest to France and to the region, not just the mega projects.
Thank you.
The floor is yours.
Bonjour. Good morning to you all. Very happy to be here, and thank you for having us. My name is Khalid Abbas. I'm the group head for wholesale banking at Gulf International Bank. Gulf International Bank is a regional pan-GCC bank with presence in Saudi Arabia, Bahrain, the UAE, and we're hopefully opening in other GCC countries very soon, but we do business there as well. We're also present in the UK, and we're also present in the US. So we've, throughout our history, been very active in dealing with multinational corporates for both inbound and outbound business into the region. And we're very familiar with a lot of the trade flows that have been occurring over the last few years, and the shift that was highlighted earlier in the session this morning towards the east. Europe and the EU still has a very big chunk of that trade flow, but the rankings have been changing over the last few years, and I'm very happy to be here, and this is a great platform to actually shed the light on how we can do more with the European Union. I actually started my career in a French bank, so France has a big place in my heart, and being here is very pleasing for me. I look at the GCC countries as going through a marvelous time right now. They are at a very strong economies. They have, if you add all the GDPs of the Gulf countries together, they actually account for $2.1 trillion of GDP, which is a sizable block, if you ask me. Obviously, Saudi, UAE, Qatar anchor that, but other GCC countries are also growing there. They are sitting in what we call a honeymoon period. They have positive fiscal balances, current account balances. They have solid reserves. Their currency is stable, back to the dollar, as you highlighted. Secured in general, secure area, and very inviting for investors. They have all converged on developing visions for their countries and for their economies. And there is a lot of cross-fertilization and contagion that's happening in the region because of that. The themes are very clear. They want to diversify away from oil. As Mohammed said earlier, we are halfway through, and we're seeing a lot of that actually reaping fruits. To your question around how do we see it as lenders, we see ourselves as enablers for growth, as in the finance sector. We promote growth. We are ambassadors for growth and for trade. Our existence is based on that. And if we see more of that, it's better for us as an industry. The GCC continues to be a welcoming partner to all partners from Europe, from the East. And we have upgraded our different sectors and upgraded our laws that are in those sectors that are growing in the future. So we have identified key sectors that are aligned with those strategies. And within those sectors, we've went in and saw the laws. A lot of those laws were archaic to start with. We went there and we upgraded those laws, so they're a lot more pragmatic. A lot of them are world-class right now, to invite investors and to assure investors that their money is safe in the region. To your point around how we see inflation, that's a very tricky topic. It's a very hot topic in the West, in the US. In the region, we've been blessed. A lot of while you're right, absolutely, in terms of saying that a lot of the inflation is imported because of the peg to the dollar. The countries and the GCC governments have been very keen, and we saw them in action, very proactive in terms of how they managed the crisis during the pandemic. And post-pandemic, as we emerged out of the pandemic, they have been very keen on ensuring that there is proper support to industries. And if you look at how they look at inflation, that's been always behind what the global inflation indices are. So across the region, you look at 2.5%, 3%, 3.5%, while the other regions in the world are much, much higher. I continue to see that the governments will continue to take that stand. Obviously, you cannot assume inflation is not there. It is there, but they have been able to contain it in a way.
Excellent. Thank you very much. And how about, again, to you and then a more generic question to the panel, what is the status of bankruptcy laws? It's a crucial thing for foreign investment. It's a crucial thing for people investing in general, for dynamic innovation, entrepreneurial system. It has been revamped in many countries, but what is your evaluation of the status of bankruptcy laws in the GCC today?
I think Ustaz Mohammed would be probably the best person to answer that immediately. But
okay, how many hours do you have? So actually, you would be surprised, but in Saudi Arabia, we didn't have a bankruptcy law. And yes, it's not simply because the economy was flourishing, but this was the case. But now, since 1 year, we have a bankruptcy law. It is taken from the best practice all over the world. It is very similar to the practice of in France. And simply the new economy, the transaction forced us, or normally it is, to have this bankruptcy law. Did I answer your question?
I think you did. I mean, you have to ask the audience. But
yeah.
How about the other countries? Because bankruptcy laws are essential for investment, and sometimes they were not very clear. It was the case of Saudi Arabia. How about the rest of the region?
If you allow me to, yeah. So we're seeing that also across the geographies we're working in as a bank. And to be honest with you, it's something new that we have to start dealing with, and we didn't, as Mr. Mohammed said earlier, it wasn't there before, so it wasn't part of our calculations of how we price risk, of how we evaluate risk. Now there are laws, and we will need to take them into consideration when we are looking at it, at least from a financing perspective. But I think that this is very healthy for the region.
Excellent. I think it is, yes. Let me ask a final question to the panel, and then we're going to take a random answers to see whoever wants to answer that one. What are the, and I'm going to choose the word here, issues, the things, the difficulties, the challenges that we face in the future? But when you're going at that speed, it's natural to make mistakes and to learn that certain things don't go smoothly, certain things not be at the same time. What, in your opinion, what are the challenges for the next few years for the GCC countries as they develop really fast and in a spectacular way? By all means.
I think, if you ask me, I think all hands are on deck across the GCC. A lot of initiatives. The speed that the change is happening at is amazing. Keeping up with that is very important. I think, if you ask me, the most important thing is talent and how to develop a good bench strength that can manage that growth and that transition of the economy. We're investing in people as an organization, we're investing in people as a country, we're investing in people as a region. But the speed that we're running at, to be honest with you, requires, in my view, to be looked at very carefully to ensure that we have, in the future, the talent that can manage and lead that change going forward.
Thank you very much. Madame de Mol, what do you think in terms of, as Cadran, as a representative of Cadran, how do you see the situation? What are the challenges and issues for the future?
It's very interesting. I'd like to step on that because there is a specificity to the region. And to me, the specificity is the partnership we were referring to earlier in the first roundtable. It's not only about business transactions. In order to get to a business transaction, you need to rely on partners, on real partners. And how do you build trust and relationship between two different regions, between here, two different countries, for example, Qatar and France. And in order to enhance the knowledge, the understanding, the real comprehension of how both countries works, or how each country in the Gulf region and in Europe or France, how do each one works, how do the ties, the economics work, you need help on that. And it's not easy to have those help. And this is the reason why if you ask us as Cadran, as founding members and the members of the organization, well, we work, I would say, on 3 different missions. First, we try to enhance the understanding and the comprehension of both communities in both countries. Second, we work to encourage the synergies, but when we do so, we really do with a pragmatic way. And when I say that is the organization of regular, of content-rich seminars, studies, conventions. This is what is happening. And we really invite all the partners, all the stakeholders to come to be there to those events, studies. And when I say that, I say real delegations that are organized from Paris to Doha, delegations that are organized from Doha to Paris. We had the opportunity and the real chance to have the the Minister of Finance of Qatar, who was here in France a couple of weeks ago, and Kadran organized a high networking event with him and the ambassador of Qatar in France, as well as all the members of Kadran. When I say who are the members, we have 5 founding members. The embassy, of course, of Qatar in France, Qatar Airways, Qatar Hospitality, QNB, and BN Group. These are major international players today. And together with the major French companies hosting events together, building studies, this is what we do on a daily basis and on a regular basis. And lastly, what is important is increase the visibility of the French companies with marking exactly the innovation projects they do on a daily basis. So it's, I would say, I want to use a French word because it's close to what is important, I think, is an accompagnement, is accompanying all the countries, but with a real will and a real wish to have a partnership with humans behind that will have the tweak and intertwined relationship between both countries.
Excellent. So the secret sauce seems to be trust and partnership. So far, we've been hearing that all the time. What do you think, Jamal?
All said is correct. I believe definitely trust is a key. I've seen this evolving over 50 years to become the most attractive FDI destination. It's easy to say it, but what the story behind it, how you evolve to become trustworthy. People look at your leadership, people look at your stability politically, people look at your GDP growth, people, and I'm talking about people and investors. The rest of the world now today, they are judging you. You are being evaluated on the hours, how you are performing your business day to day, how easy you are in terms of applying your rules of law. These applicabilities are very important when it comes to, in the eye of the global economy. Trust is definitely, it becomes with time. People trust you as they see your behaviors. How this country is behaving politically, economically, culturally, socially. So it is a very important aspect. I would third attribute how your laws are being executed. Today, the #1 FDI destination since inception is US. This is a fact. On UNCTAD or any reports, the most attractive FDI destination in the world today ranking is US. Why? They trust the law system. They trust they would treat you equally. France is set on the 6th rank, which is very good. UK, Germany, this is the 3 European countries really respect laws. So I think laws, applicability and execution, and being fair with the foreign partners, treating it like a local partners, it makes a big difference. So trust, definitely, applicability and execution of laws is very important.
Thank you very much. How about Ntubinges? What do you think?
Yeah, so I think the challenges, if you look at it for the future for the GCC countries, and that was one of the main focus for many of the Gulf countries. What if in the next 5 years you find no oil and gas, for example, in these countries? hopefully that wouldn't be the case. But that is one of the things and objectives that has pushed the government in those countries to look at those challenges and to start on diversifying the economies and the source of income for their budgetary incomes and so on, and the growth for each of those countries. The other thing is that, you know, we are seeing what makes the Gulf now is like very witnessed in terms of the growth, the pace, the new projects, the mega and the infrastructure projects, the oil and gas sector as well, which is very active, as well as the technology part. So UAE is doing a great job in diversifying their economy, and they are fast in the pace in doing that. So the challenge is how really to cope with all of these changes happening globally. How to diversify the income and how to regulate that and to cope with the international regulations, like when it comes to FDIs, for example, new sets of tax laws, governance, the equity and the opportunity as well, like Jamal mentioned as well, to give the same opportunity whether you're a GCC or you're a multinational or you're doing business in that specific country. So how to connect all of this is the challenges for the upcoming period in this region.
Of course, I guess there's interesting things that need to be done. I'm going to, Mohammed, I would like
You
to
know,
conclude in 2 or 3 minutes. What do you think?
I'll be very frank, and I'll talk about Saudi Arabia. I think we're moving so fast, and we're changing the country so fast that the perception of Saudi Arabia is still dragging behind for 3, 4, 5 years. So every time we meet people, we meet investors, we meet people that they want to relocate to the country, they still have the picture or the image of the old Saudi Arabia. So this is our main challenge, and we're getting there because numbers are showing this, because when we look at our KPIs year on year of the, you know, in those programs that I've talked to you about, in each ministry, in each program, there is something called the VRO, a Vision Realization Office. So we're really tracking the performance of our institutions, ministries, and so on. And I can again assure you that we're really overperforming on the vision and the implementation of the vision. But just people have to see this transformation happening, and most of the time we have to explain it. So it's a communication challenge, if I may so. Then I'm a little bit jealous because Nathalie did the good sale about the Franco-Qatari business circle. And I should do the same for the Saudi-French Business Council in a much brief way. No, what is very important for the CAFs is simply that we now open the CAFs to foreign members, which wasn't the case. And this is really an exception granted by the Minister of Commerce to the CAFs as a first business council where we can have French members, and we just announced it a few months ago, and now we can count more than 50 members. And definitely we invite you to join our business community. And for the CAFs, our counterparts, our partners in France are definitely Business France. We work as well with MEDEF International, with the Chambre de Commerce in France. So that's it. Thank you.
Excellent. So I guess that perceptions and reality are not always the same thing. And when you move very, very fast, people are a little bit behind the way they see you. So I guess it's an invitation to all the business people here, businessmen and businesswomen, to actually go visit. I mean, not all the countries, the country that's more appropriate to you, but to go and visit because, well, first it's going to change your perception of how things happen, how fast things are changing. But in addition to that, it's going to allow you to create the links and the connections that build trust and the partnership. So I guess the idea...
One more thing. So just a question, and this is a good proof. And I will, this answers as well Mr. Al-Jarwan comment earlier. How many in this room know that you can have a visa to visit KSA at the airport? So no more visas are required. How many knows that we have a golden visa now for investors? You see, so we are with the UAE going on the same path because simply this is logic because we're going in that direction. But people still think that the Saudi of today is the Saudi of yesterday, where you had to make an application to go to the embassy and submit a file, which is again the case of Schengen experience to have the visa. But nowadays in Saudi Arabia, and it's not only for Europeans. You know, Middle Eastern who are living in the GCC and in the Middle East and others, European, other nationalities, the moment they have either the US visa or the Schengen visa, they can come to Saudi Arabia and have their entry visa stamped at the airport. So, you know, all these things, we probably don't say it enough, and we don't say it loud enough as well to pass this information to investors, to tourists, which is very important also for KSA nowadays.
For all the region. Would you like to add something? I think it was a final comment.
Last point, I want to also stress on the point of openness. I think Saudi Arabia and UAE, Qatar, Kuwait, Oman have really opened their borders. We have really managed for the 5th year. Today, UAE, it was released in a few days ago, in fact, that UAE is the most attracted destination for talent, which is very critical, I think, being the trust and openness and applicability of law. Talent is definitely fundamental. Without having the right talent in your economy, especially when you are diversified and growing, definitely you need talent. And you need to open it up. And as my colleague, Mr. Mohammed bin Laden mentioned quite rightly, we have now offering golden visas, permanent residencies for specific, like doctors, lawyers, we are offering for life. In fact, we are offering national passports for some CEOs, talented CEOs. We are offering national passport.
That is fantastic. I think I really appreciate your comment on talent and the need for talent.
Very important.
I think that is reflected. One second. I think it's reflected on the significant commitment that many countries of the region have made in education, the creation of world-class universities. There's at least 2 who are in the top 50 under 50 years old, and that is significant. The billions of dollars are being spent on education, and also primary research, basic research. I think is there. I think the idea, the bottom line is don't go there trying to sell things as you thought you could 10 years ago, 50 years ago. It's about something else. The world has changed, and the approach, the West approach to the GCC should be different too. But you want to say something? I'm not going to cut you off. Please, by all means.
I don't want it to appear that it's a challenge between UAE and KSA, because we're brother, friends, and neighbors. And we're following exactly the same path. What applies for the UAE applies also for KSA. But again, on the same path of communication and passing some information about the possibilities and the potential of KSA. If you wish to come to KSA today, you can own your land, own your house, and own your company exclusively with no partner, Saudi partner, and less tax than Europe.
That sounds interesting, eh?
Yeah.
Would you like to conclude?
Yes, and
Thank you,
conclude, I don't know, I'll leave that to you. But no, I would like to say that indeed there is an openness of all the countries of the GCC. Openness, first, obviously, to continue the business relationship, but it's openness to culture, and the culture as we used to know, but the culture as it is diversifying, as it's expanding, as it's going into a new direction for all of the countries of the GCC, meaning, okay, you talked about KSA, you talked about UAE, and I will obviously talk about Qatar, but it's also about getting to know these countries, getting to know the nationals of the countries, and opening to tourism. And this is where I think it may be a new panel to come, maybe, but it is a new adventure. And the new thing is tourism in the Gulf region. It can be in Saudi Arabia, it can also be in Qatar. Why is it in Qatar? Because we know that there are things after the World Cup that have happened and profoundly changed the country. And when we know that Doha has been elected as the Arab tourism capital for 2023, this is where we know that the nationals and the country is ready and is dynamic and very ambitious to receive and to welcome all of the internationals to the country. So it's an openness of the region and of some specific countries.
Yeah, maybe you guys are not alone. It's not only about Saudi and UAE. So Kuwait have now also the KDIPA, the Kuwait Direct Promotion Investment Authority, which allows 100% of foreign companies to own and operate business, can have also visas on arrival. There is a promotion for the business. So we are yet coming up to the UAE and Saudi, but it is coming up. Yeah?
I did not mean this to be a competition of which country is the more hospitable, but it's true, and seriously, it's true that this effervescence that you see in the region, this competition between different countries try to do better than the other, is lifting everybody, and it's creating a place where business can be done, where the new business can be done, especially the business that has to do with a sustainable world, a more just, and the world that will not destroy the place where we live. And that, of course, the GCC is central in the answer, right? Because we cannot do that. So it's not just about being open. It's also about the desire to transform the countries into something bigger, something different than what it was before. And that effervescence is fascinating for people who come from Europe, where things are a little bit slower and more difficult to do. That's all the time we have. So thank you very much to all my panelists. Thank you very much to all of you. Thank you. It's been a pleasure.
Pablo, for your fellow panelists for sharing these thoughts, and I can't agree more that the Gulf countries do offer an immense opportunities for global enterprise, for growth and prosperity. De rien, merci.
I'm moderating the next panel.
Okay, can I just ask you to sit down that side?
On the other side, yes.
Yes, but just let me just introduce you before.
Because these are the speakers. Shall I tell them to sit or to wait?
Well, you can sit. You can sit. I will introduce the panel while you are sitting. We are gaining time like this. Great.
Mettez-vous et puis c'est...
Oui, mais tu me regardes s'il te plaît pour rapport le timing parce que franchement on est très. Ouais, okay, mais you sit there and I'll look at you. Ladies and gentlemen, we are about to start our next panel. I invite you kindly to take your seats. So with this beautiful energy at the room, we will talk energy. Investment in the energy sector is crucial for a stable and sustainable supply and drive economic growth and job creation worldwide. So now let's explore the pivotal role played by the Gulf nation in shaping the global energy landscape and a transition into clean, sustainable energy. Hosting the COP28 in the UAE this year symbolized the unwavering trust that the global community has in the region. The prestigious event not only recognized the UAE's commitment to tackle climate change, but also highlights the significant effort made by the entire region in fostering sustainability and taking the leadership in the energy transition investments, clean tech, and low-carbon solutions. So, what are the opportunities and challenges of this transformative journey in the Gulf region, and how the French expertise is standing out? So now I will introduce our moderator, Marc-Antoine Ilmezega, si je prononce bien, je suis désolée, Director Energy and Climate Center, French Institute for International Relations. So I invite you to start the panel with your esteemed guest. Thank you.
Excellent. Good morning, everyone. It's a pleasure to moderate this crucial panel. We have a fantastic lineup of speakers and a challenge. It's like the energy transitions. We have to speed up, so we will also speed up this panel. But I'd like to give you, I think, just to set the scene in a few words, to tell you that there is, of course, no global energy security these days and for the foreseeable future without the fundamental contribution from the GCC countries, and especially in oil supply flexibility. Now, there will be no global energy security, no global economic security, and no global security full stop if we do not accelerate low-carbon technology investments. And the good news is there's a lot happening in the GCC. There's incredible opportunities. These are technologies that are available, that can make money. And what we need to look for is how do we basically manage the imperative of energy security, of affordability, of public acceptance, of sustainability, but also, of course, competitiveness and the value chain mastering. So this is a few words from my side. We have, as I said, a good mixture of stakeholders from the GCC and from France and Europe. So I'd like to start this conversation in calling Mr. Nabil Al-Nuaim. You are the Aramco Digital CEO and Aramco Senior Vice President for Digital and IT. And I think it is not a chance that you are here. I think it really reflects the fundamental transformation of your company, which makes headlines because it is one of the most, if not the most profitable company in the world, but actually also a definite leader in this digital transformation. So the floor is yours. Tell us a bit what's moving you every day.
Maybe I would like to start framing my comments into like supply, demand, when we talk about energy, but also, what are the enabling technologies, what are the enabling, policies and regulations, and also investment. So when we talk about, at least in Aramco, the way we put our strategy, including digital, by the way, one of the objectives of digital is really to strengthen Saudi Aramco position in climate change, as an example. So when you talk about supply, we have to talk about supply in the form of, conventional energy being the most secure, the most affordable energy, but also plan for the energy transition. Energy transition in the form of other forms of energy. Renewables, the new energy like hydrogen, but also, gas. At the same time, low carbon solutions for the conventional energy. So this is from the supply side. From the demand, when you consume energy, also there is a role for the consumers, whether industrial, residential, or commercial. So energy efficiency is a big component as well. From the demand side. And as we know, the energy is also consumed in the form of materials. So when we talk about energy transition, we should talk about also transitioning to new materials from commodities like the oil. And there are projects and initiatives that Aramco is doing, what we call it non-metallic, transitioning into material that is more sustainable, has a lower carbon footprint. At the same time, from investment, when you talk about sustainability, which is really put all the whole framework all together and compensate the whole thing, is Aramco, we launched what we call Sustainability Fund, a $1.5 billion fund that focuses on providing disruptive emerging technology to help and support sustainability from the supply side, from the demand side, and also whether material in the solving material transition issues or energy transition issues. So when we talk about what's really happening in the region, you will find almost that we have the same story. And being the most or the most secure and reliable and affordable supply of energy that comes from the GCC countries, being Aramco the global player over there, we always look at the whole picture together. And this is what the way we really are excited about the time. And also we are excited of our relationship with France. We have a very long historical business relationship with France. We, at least in Aramco, we invested in a couple of new technology companies that really addresses almost what I'm talking about. So happy to be part of the team. We hope we identify some of the technologies and the companies that we can invest in that really looks at the whole picture altogether.
Thank you very much for these introductory points. And I may now turn to your neighbor, Hervé Maillard, who is the permanent delegate for the nuclear sector of the Strategic Committee for the Nuclear Sector in France. So he plays a key coordinator role. As you know, France is the country of nuclear power, but we see also many developments in the GCC area, and you are very active there. Perhaps you could tell us more about your perspectives and how you see things going on.
Yes, so I would like to insist on the fact that the energy transition will require in the next decades a huge increase of low carbon energy. It's quite easy to decarbonize the electricity with solar power, with windmills, with nuclear. So we will probably face a huge increase of electricity. If I take just a value in France, if we want to decarbonize heating for buildings, individuals and collective, we will face exactly around the same energy consumption that the electricity production in France. It's the same level of energy that we will need. So I'm sure that nuclear energy will play an important role in the future. You all know that UAE has already started 3 reactors and will start the 4th one in the next weeks. And I will insist on 3 very important points for nuclear. Nuclear is cost effective because the price of the electricity produced is due to 60% to the capital. So once we start the nuclear power, the price is very stable for a long term, 60 years, and very low compared to the market of other energy. It's controllable, so you can follow solar panels or the wind production, and it's very effective concerning resources consumption, the ground, very effective for the space on the ground, the concrete, the steel, the mining consumption. So France is one of the leaders for nuclear technology. We had some problem in the past. Okay, we will. Now we are on the road to go for a new launch of 6+8 construction of reactor in France. So we will need a lot of talents. It was mentioned earlier. And I would like to say that we have created, it was mentioned by Mr. Saint-Martin at the beginning of this conference, we have created with the Emirates an initiative called eFusion. And we have created, I am responsible for this initiative, and we have created it in 2019 with the objective, in fact, to build some collaboration between nuclear French industry and, at this time, non-nuclear Emirati industry. So today we have approximately 50 French companies participating to this initiative, and we have approximately 25 Emirati companies building some collaboration, building some contracts to work in the Baraka nuclear power plant. We have some big contracts, some big success. It's a very effective organization. We organize several meetings each year. I think it's a good example of what can France do in this field of nuclear with other countries, because Baraka is not a French technology, it's a Korean technology, but we can work with different technology. And I will insist to conclude on the fact that this organization has a very high in-country value. It's not France that sells some hundreds or thousands of people to work at Baraka. No, the value is really an in-country value, and the French technology, French companies bring their knowledge, but don't bring so much value back in France. You know, it's really an in-country value in the Emirates.
Thank you, Hervé, and we'll continue with the electricity sector and the opportunities there. I'm talking to Brice Rezin. You are the Vice President of Heavy-Duty Gas Turbine Sales for GE Gas Power Europe, Middle East and Africa. And you are one of the global leaders in this technology supply chain, and you operate notably a big factory in Belfort, which is an industrial region, a cluster in France, which could turn into also a major, by the way, hydrogen hub moving forward. So perhaps you could tell us how you see the future of your activities in the region and how that could enable to combine sustainability and energy security.
Yes, and thank you, and good morning, everybody. So, you know, when you think about power gen, first of all, power generation is about 1/3 of CO2 emission in the world. So that's the type of responsibility of the stakeholder of the sector have today. Secondly, when you think about the transition, you realize, everybody realizes that there is a trilemma between affordability of power, and Nabil spoke about it, reliability and dispatchability of power, and sustainability of power. This is all, and everybody in the industry have to work inside this trilemma, thinking about the roadmap with this trilemma in mind. Now there is an extra one that we had to it, that is energy security, that you also spoke about. So, you know, that's a game board. When you think about energy transition in power generation, that's what you have to think about. Now, how we think and how GCC is handling that, which is very in line on how we think about it, is that ultimately, for the transition, the couple of renewable energy with gas power is the right answer. It's a right answer for several reasons. First, it allows to get to the target we all have. It allows to get the energy securities. It also allows to ensure that the investment are done in technology, and I'm speaking specifically about the gas power technology, that are able to decarbonize in the future or now with carbon capture technology. I'm sure other stakeholders will speak about that, and hydrogen, because gas power technology is a technology that is able to burn hydrogen. To give you an idea, we have more, at GE, we have more than 8 million operating hours on turbine with some type of hydrogen content in the fuel. So there is still investment to be done, and that's what we are about, investing in technology. But, you know, that's not a bottleneck to the transition. And so it allows the couple renewable and gas allows this acceleration while ensuring the future at net zero or near zero, as we call it. And finally, two other things. It doesn't work for power gen if there is not the right investment in the grid. And that's also a technology as GE that we defend, but the grid needs to be able to absorb this new power, new electrons that will arrive, but also this new type of electrons, because renewables is intermittent power ultimately, and that changes the concept of how the grid need to operate, including the digitalization of it again. And we as GE, how we position ourselves, when you think about Belfort, and it was mentioned here, we have this manufacturing plant that manufacture gas turbines for more than 30 years, that serve half of the world from there. This technology has been used by EDF lately to start one of the decarbonization activity, and we see the prospect for similar technology in all over the GCC.
Thank you so much. That's very impressive. And I think now we can move to my next speaker, who is Amalia Giannakikou. You are the Head of Development and Investment for Europe of Masdar. So two good reasons to have you now in the row. One is the incredible success story of Masdar. We used to see it as a local, very dynamic player, and now it's all over the place, and including in Europe. And the second is, obviously, yes, the gas turbines could be a good backup and are a good backup in many regions to an increased deployment of renewables. So please, the floor is yours.
Thank you, and thank you, everyone. I'll start by addressing what was discussed in the last session. It's not about competition. So it's not about one country competing against the other. It's actually about collaboration and coordination among the countries. So Masdar, it's a relatively new company, 17 years in the sector, very new in renewables, but then again, very dynamic. We are sitting today with commitments and assets worth of $30 billion. We're already in 40 different countries, and we have commitments on our operating assets that are totaling more than 20 gigawatts. Earlier this year, we made a new announcement, a new Masdar, transforming Masdar, not only to capture the renewable, which is our mandate going forward, but we also brought 2 more Abu Dhabi government entities into our structure. We're investing through that, and we're supporting very much how we transmit all these green technology, green production, whether these are electrons or these are production of renewable, production of green hydrogen. So we have TACA and the National Energy Company of the government of Abu Dhabi, and we have ADNOC in our structure as well to promote even further that. Masdar, as part of this journey, has also made commitments to bring our targeted capacity to 5 times more in the next 6.5 years. So by 2030, this is a major commitment from our side. We're targeting 100 gigawatts by 2030, and even going beyond that for the years later. We've also made a commitment to invest in green hydrogen, targeting 1 million tons of green hydrogen by the timeline that I just mentioned. A number of agreements that we've signed during this time, connecting the UAE, connecting the region with Europe, both on production. We have made a commitment for the production of 10 gigawatt of renewable projects in, and investments in Egypt, and then transmitting that into Europe through collaborations we have on the transmission side, either through Masdar or Abu Dhabi government initiatives. So it's not only a matter of production, it's also a matter of transmission. I'll also emphasize our interest to see further initiatives on the green hydrogen. And again, support from the government in the ability to transfer that. Dedicated pipelines dedicated for green hydrogen so as to feed the high demand centers of Europe and elsewhere.
Thank you, Amalia. And you also put the finger on this fundamental issue, which is transmission, which is obviously the next big thing we all have to work on, be it in the OECD, be it in Europe, in the United States, in the region. And there's plenty of opportunity of interconnections indeed. May I turn to Majdi Abed? You are the Vice President for International Public Affairs of Total Energies, and your company also embodies the transformation of apart from being an oil major into a multi-energy company operating across the world. How you specifically see the GCC region in terms of opportunities, and what is it that you have on your radar there?
شكرا يا مارك أنطوان وشكرا للدعوة والسلام عليكم. I won't follow in Arabic, I'm sorry, but I won't follow in English neither, because it's better for your ears. So I'm going to speak French, if you don't mind.
Put your earsets.
Comme tu l'as dit, Marc-Antoine, les pays du Golfe sont essentiels pour la transition énergétique. C'est vraiment le lieu où, à mon sens, l'essentiel va se produire. Pourquoi? Parce que dans transition énergétique, il y a transition. Attends, je vais reprendre. Yes. Donc je disais que les pays du Golfe sont essentiels parce que dans transition énergétique, il y a transition. Et la transition, ça demande du temps. Rien n'indique qu'on pourra totalement et rapidement se passer des énergies fossiles. Donc, et on sait tous que les derniers barils viendront vraisemblablement du Golfe. Donc ça va demander du temps et les pays du Golfe ont un rôle à jouer. Dans le même temps, les pays du Golfe ont, et certains d'entre eux plus que d'autres, mais ont des réserves de gaz très importantes. Et le gaz est l'énergie de la transition. Je crois que tout le monde le sait. Si on devait remplacer le charbon par le gaz et toutes les centrales à charbon par des centrales à gaz, on serait dans la trajectoire de 1,5. Donc, il y a là un atout, encore une fois, pour les pays du Golfe à travers le gaz. Et Total Energy, comme vous le savez, est investi dans le développement des champs Northfield au Qatar. Nous sommes également en Arabie Saoudite, aux côtés de Saudi Aramco, pour notre projet de raffinerie et de pétrochimie, Satorp et Amiral. Et nous développons une coopération très forte avec les Émirats, aussi dans d'autres secteurs qui permettent de diminuer l'intensité carbone des énergies fossiles à travers les technologies que vous connaissez sans doute, qui sont le CCS et le DAC, Direct Air Capture. Donc on a dans cette région tous les potentiels pour développer les choses, et la compagnie Total Energy a une très forte coopération avec, encore une fois, Qatar Energy, Saudi Aramco, ADNOC et tous les partenaires pour réussir cette transition et parvenir à maintenir, comme l'a dit mon camarade de droite, à maintenir le triangle clé qui est à la fois l'accessibilité. Il faut que l'énergie soit accessible, il faut qu'elle soit disponible et il faut qu'elle soit durable. Accessible en termes financiers. Voilà, je ne vais pas être plus long, je crois que nous avons des consignes. Merci.
Merci beaucoup, Majdi. Et on va revenir là, notamment sur les enjeux de... Sorry. Thank you very much, Majdi. No, I was slipping into French. But we go back notably to carbon capture and storage in a second. But let me introduce now my last speaker, Didier Hulot. You are the Executive Vice President of ENGIE. ENGIE is known in Europe and across the world because you very, very soon embraced a very ambitious decarbonization strategy. Your company is certified by well below 2 degrees by the Science-Based Target. And you are operating in a number of sectors, including all the energy services to the energy transition. That is not just electricity supply, but also on the demand side and also on the district level cooling system, for example. So perhaps you could tell us a bit more about your experience, your activities there, and the opportunities you see in the region.
Thank you, Marc-Antoine. Yes, ENGIE has been very active in the Gulf countries for many years. And traditionally, we were very involved in the gas-fired power plants. And I don't come back to what has been already said about the role of these gas-fired power plants. I would like to insist more on 2 or 3 topics where ENGIE may have a different profile. The first one is about district cooling. You just mentioned it, Marc-Antoine. We consider district cooling to be an absolutely major development target in the Gulf countries. We all know that producing cool with a normal air conditioning system at home is the most inefficient way to cool your home. And everywhere where you can replace it by a district cooling system, it's far more efficient. First, because apparatus to transform energy into cool is more efficient, but also because you can store cold water. And if you store cold water, it means that you can produce the cold when the power is available. And therefore, you bring a solution to the issue of intermittency of photovoltaic power. Because you produce the photovoltaic power, you produce cold water, you store the cold water, and you can use it 24 hours a day. So typically, that's the kind of solution we want to develop, and we are one of the main partners of Tabrid with developing this solution across the Gulf countries. Another industry in which we are very much involved is desalination. We are operator of several desalination plants. We are currently developing the Mirfa water plant production in Abu Dhabi. And we have great ambitions there. And one day also, you can think that also water production could be made variable in the time so that you can store sweet water like you store cold water in a district cooling system and adapt your energy consumption to the energy availability. Because, and that's my third point, managing the demand will become an absolutely major topic for the Gulf countries. Because you have so much development of renewable electricity, you need to be able to adjust the demand on the other side. It's pointless to try to replicate with a very high percentage of renewable electricity the same stable grid that you had enjoyed when all the power production means were stable, gas-fired, coal-fired, whatever. You have to be able to adapt the demand to the availability of power. And that's the next challenge for the Gulf countries. And it's a double challenge. It's a challenge technically, but it's a challenge also on the regulatory point of view. Because in the Gulf country, like in many countries in the world, the regulation has not been drafted for a world where most of the energy is intermittent, and therefore you need to find a way to incentivize people to use power when it's available rather than when they think they need it. That being said, obviously another topic will be whatever can adjust offer and demand, like batteries in different form. It could be thermal storage, it could be lithium-ion, it could be other technologies, but storage of power and storage of energy will be the next big thing. And obviously in that respect, hydrogen production is also a way to store energy. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Didier. And that's good. I see there's people who want to react. So you know what? We still have a few minutes left. So what I suggest is I'm very pleased if you can react, if you wish to react to what's been said. And we can start with Hervé, who was very keen to do so. And perhaps also, let's take this as your final remarks. So if you wish also perhaps to highlight 1 or 2 projects or ongoing developments you are particularly looking forward this year, which you are very proud about and you think are game changers, please go ahead and outline them. Hervé, we start with you.
Yes, thank you, Marc-Antoine. Thank you very much. I would like to, I find this panel very interesting because we are talking about very complementary questions. You know, there are the question of transition and the question of long term. If we talk about nuclear, I will put it on the long term, but if you take the Baraka power station, it will operate till the end of this century, till 2100. When Egypt will have started also I forgot the name, the power plant, the nuclear power plant, it will also operate till the beginning of the next century. And so I will make the link between the transition. I will agree that we will need all type of technologies, storage, gas, and so on, to do transition with a lower carbon emission. And for the long term, this is my personal opinion, we will need some long-term energy like nuclear, and nuclear for electricity, nuclear for maybe cooling with steam, heating for industrial needs, heating for houses, and so on. It's not going directly and always through electricity. And if I want to answer to your question, is what I am proud of is the success of the e-fusion approach that we have with the Emirates, and the very impressive results of the Baraka nuclear power plants. We are not responsible of this, but they have done a tremendous job.
Thank you, Enver. And yes, indeed. I mean, I mentioned as a bottleneck the grid issue, but the skills is also an issue for the entire world as we want to deploy these technologies at scale. Nabil, would you perhaps tell us also a bit more on your perspective on carbon capture and storage, where your company seems to put a lot of emphasis on?
Yeah, Aramco strongly believe in really taking the strong steps and really identifying solutions for the complex climate change. So the carbon capture and sequestration project that Aramco launched, it will be the basis for also expanding how many tons of CO2 will be captured. So starting with 9 million tons per year by 2027, which is quite sizable. I think it will be probably among, if not the largest carbon capture sequestration. It will play a major role in also attracting technologies, identifying areas of how to really cut cost. How do you leverage technology to solve this very complex problem? One area that I would like also to talk about is the role of digitalization, the role of collecting data, the role of machines supporting human beings that are beyond the human capacity. So when you talk about as simple as carbon capture or sequestration, there is a role for digitalization, specifically data and AI, to help us in making better decisions. When you store CO2, you need to monitor the performance of the storage. You need to identify, if there are any issues related to the operation. So we need to bring digitalization early on, and this is what Aramco is doing, even with the carbon capture and sequestration, because it will give us a record which areas we can take the carbon capture sequestration projects to the next level. So modeling, even bringing quantum computing into the modeling and computation. So we like to always, whenever there is a global initiative like carbon capture sequestration, we invite the technology people to come and participate with us, and we have a major plan for digitalization to play a role in projects such as the CCS project in Saudi Arabia.
Thank you, Nabil, and thanks also for reminding that we are not talking about energy transitions. They go in pair with the digital transition, of course, and they're both helping each other, and there is no way to do this in silo, of course. Absolutely. Can I turn to Brice? Perhaps tell us, what is exactly that you're also eyeing in the GCC region this year, and maybe also with all these deployment gas-fired power plants and more renewables, so do you see that maybe there will be actually more capacity available, but less utilization possibly of these plants, hence also some regulatory developments to be made?
Yeah, so first of all, I agree that all of that is complementary to what Hervé also mentioned. Ultimately, there is a point that we hear about that, but we need to act now. So also to focus, what are we focusing on? But if we don't act now, and we will not move the needle. To act now, it's about where the money goes. So where this investment will go, with all the technologies that have been explained, and what we are focusing on power gen. On power gen, some things are very fast. We look at, in Abu Dhabi, to upgrade existing plant. This is CO2 emission reduction in six months from now. We look at moving simple cycle plant to combined cycle plant, so that would mean adding steam turbine on an existing plant. This is 1.5 years from now, 30% reduction of emission of CO2. We are following up on what we did in Sharjah for more than 1.2 gigawatt of power from Belfort. That came from the factory here in France. This is, compared to the previous technology for similar power generation, this is 4 million tons per year of CO2 reduction. To give you an idea, this is about 1 million cars out of the road equivalent. So that's the type of thing we are doing. We see that GCC is looking the same. Saudi is looking at a huge investment on renewables and gas, in which we hope to participate, again, with the support from the Belfort Engineering. Finally, the future for us will look different, because even though the technology will be there, they won't be used the same way. That's what you mentioned, meaning they will probably use less than today, with renewable providing most of the power to the grid, but this technology providing power whenever renewable is not able to. And that requires to make sure that the regulation is in place to make sure the investment are happening around such scheme of technology. And of course, this is a debate and the discussion we are having with all the partners.
Thank you, Brice. And Amalie, I think we were all flabbergasted by your impressive targets to 2030, because we in Europe discuss also these ramp-up of renewables targets, but I think nobody dares to bet on that will succeed. But how do you move from 20 to 100 gigawatts within such a short time frame, and what makes you confident you can deliver on that? I'd be happy to hear you on that, notably.
Quite a few things that I want to address in these last statements, but we are planning to do that through collaborations, as stated earlier. So most of the companies that are seated here, if not many more, we're always believing in walking this path together with others. We're investing in renewables, naturally, wind farms, solar farms, onshore, offshore, waste to energy, energy efficiency, battery storage. We acquired Arlington Energy late in last year. A number of things that we do, both also on the off-grid system. So a lot of projects that Master invests in to support local communities. But I will touch a bit on what my colleague here said earlier. It's all about demand as well. And I'll link it to what I want to also mention, which is about education. It's about educating our young, students to actually change their mindsets and move towards a more sustainable economy and more sustainable energy, and the transition that we're working towards that. We as the UAE have made all these commitments as Master. We're also one of the first, if not the first country that signed off the Paris Agreement a few years ago. We are, through our presidency of Master, also have the presidency of COP28 in the UAE. That shows the very solid commitment that we have in this transition to bring as many renewable energy projects as we can. This is in also committing to a zero carbon energy by 2050. as a UAE, and again, we are not going to do that alone. We need support. We need support from the governments. We need support from all our colleagues or competitors. This is doing things together, not differently.
Thank you, Amalia, and also, of course, for reminding us of COP28, which everybody's looking forward to when we just had and are having the discussions in Bonn, the preparatory discussions, of course, which take quite a few days, but which will give us an indication of where to go. But definitely that will be the most important gathering early December in Dubai. Can I turn to Majdi? Perhaps, Majdi, what is also remarkable about Total Energies is that you are one of, or if not the only oil major that has also a footprint in the battery industry. And that might be very interesting also for us and also for the region, because the region was also very interested in moving up the automotive value chain. And we're also happy to hear any comments you would like to make about our discussion.
Merci. Tout d'abord, je voudrais reprendre ou réagir sur ce qu'a dit Amalia sur l'importance de la pédagogie, sur l'importance de bien expliquer les choses. Et je crois qu'il faut aussi le faire, comme on l'a dit, pour bien expliquer qu'on ne peut pas passer d'un système à base d'énergie fossile, carbonée, à un système à base d'énergie décarbonée du jour au lendemain. Ça, encore une fois, c'est quelque chose d'important et ce n'est pas toujours entendu. Pour autant, j'ai bien conscience, tout le monde a bien conscience qu'il faut accélérer. Et Total Energy le fait, puisqu'on passe de 4 milliards d'investissements en 2022 à 5 milliards dans les énergies low carbone et qu'on déploie tout ce qu'il est possible de déployer pour atteindre les objectifs. Et nous avons également l'objectif de 100 gigawatts pour 2030. Donc, il faut accélérer, ça c'est évident. Il y a plusieurs manières de le faire. Donc, j'ai parlé des investissements, comme Brice l'a soulevé. Il y a plusieurs manières de le faire, le CCS, l'efficacité énergétique, l'hydrogène, les énergies photovoltaïques, éoliennes. Donc, il y a toute une palette, et je suis d'accord avec tout le monde. Effectivement, c'est complémentaire. On n'a pas encore une vision assez claire. S'agissant des énergies renouvelables, alternatives, les batteries jouent un rôle clé. Et c'est pour ça que nous avons investi dans les batteries, car elles permettent de stocker cette énergie et de la redéployer au meilleur moment. Donc voilà. Et s'agissant des projets un peu phares que nous avons, il y a évidemment cette centrale solaire d'El Karsa de 800 mégawatts qui, sur sa durée de vie, permettra d'économiser 20 millions de tonnes de CO2, 26 millions de tonnes de CO2. Il y a un gros projet que nous avons, c'est dans le Golfe, même si ce n'est pas dans le cadre du Conseil de coopération des États du Golfe, en Irak, d'un 1 gigawatt 2. Il y a, je l'espère, beaucoup d'autres opportunités dans le solaire, dans l'éolien, dans toutes les énergies bas carbone, avec tous nos partenaires dans les pays du Golfe.
Merci beaucoup, Majdi. Nabil, would you like to jump in quickly?
Yeah, I would like
quickly.
to, very quickly, you know, something that we typically don't talk about is, which was addressed is the dispatchability of the energy mix. Huh? So I think sometimes we talk about switching, energy transition, but there is operation. When you operate an electricity grid, you cannot nuclear switch it on and off. This is like a base load that will have to stay with you more than 8,000 hours probably a year. But there is this swing, you know, that you need to switch on and off in order to operate your grid very securely and in a reliable format. So thinking of the dispatchability in an energy mix is something very, very critical and very important, you know, for as you start, the energy security, especially for the electricity grid. So some of the, you know, people, they might think that, you know, renewable can displace the conventional energy, or even nuclear can do it. you have to need an operator, and we work in Saudi Arabia with the operator to understand what is really the right energy mix to have to dispatch between different forms of energy, which is very, very important for the energy security, for making sure that this society, whether business or the people, have access to secure energy. And I thought from the discussions, that this is an area that we don't talk about dispatch. Thank you for bringing this, because this is very important, dispatchability. How do you switch? And I'm sure Europe probably struggled certain period of time because of missing this dispatchability issue, which is combined with the energy mix of any country.
Juste un mot, si tu m'y autorises. Il y a un sujet dont on n'a pas parlé, il me semble, et qui est important, c'est la lutte contre le méthane. Et là-dessus aussi, nous sommes pleinement mobilisés pour réduire la quantité de méthane à travers la lutte contre le torchage, la suppression du torchage. Et on a des objectifs ambitieux, puisqu'on veut diminuer les émissions de méthane de 50% en 2025 par rapport à 2020 et 80% en 2030. Je crois que la lutte contre les émissions de méthane est aussi un des moyens de tenir nos engagements en termes de gaz à effet de serre.
Yeah, thank you, Majdi, for reminding us. Yes, if we put more gas in the system, it has to be clean, spick and span value chains, indeed, with no venting and flaring. And by the way, it's not just the oil and gas industry; it's also the coal mines. It's also the waste sector, etc. Let me turn to our last speaker today, Didier Law. So you have basically a chance to react. There's lots of great projects going on. What is fascinating is in Europe, we tend to look at smaller projects. Your region is a region of plenty, and so the scale is just always impressive. So perhaps you could also react on that and leave us with a final word before we conclude.
Thank you, Marc-Antoine. Yes, this is a region where a lot of big projects are being considered, and I will speak later of one of them. But I would start by jumping on what Brice said, that energy efficiency is absolutely essential, and this is done by many, many small projects on existing installation. And because there are so many small projects, at the end, it represents an energy savings which is absolutely massive. And ENGIE, with its ENGIE Solution Global Business Unit, is able to help deliver these massive savings. It starts with very basic things like replacing traditional bulbs by LED in public lighting in Abu Dhabi. But it may be in many other places. I already mentioned district cooling, which is far more efficient, let's say twice more efficient than individual air conditioning systems. So we need to improve that. I will not come back to what Brice said about power plants, gas-fired power plants, where a lot can be done, but a lot of industrial plants can be done more efficient, and desalination is one of them. And clearly, we need to implement that. It's less visible, less big projects, but a lot of small investments, small decisions by many decision makers, and it will make a big difference. So that's very important, and ENGIE can help its customer in doing so. The second thing is, yes, we are also involved in big projects. I will just mention one of them, bouncing on what Amalia said about partnership and partnership with Mazda in this case. 18 months ago, our CEO, Kenry McGregor, signed with His Excellency Sultan Al Jaber a memorandum of understanding about a big project, which is Crystal Green High H2 project, where we want to implement 2 gigawatts of solar panel plus electrolyzer. It's a $5 billion USD project, and it's progressing quite well. We expect to be able to make final investment decision by the time of COP28, and that would be clearly a landmark. We strongly believe that hydrogen is part of the future of energy all over the world, but particularly in this region, where cheap green power is available. And we are working on that. That's one of our flagship projects in this region. And we strongly believe that with this project, we will be able, as Amalia mentioned, not only to produce for the local industry, but obviously to transport and export hydrogen.
Thank you, Didier. I think we had a wonderful panel. We are running already late, but we still managed to do that in 45 minutes. Maybe just one word to wrap this up. I think it was indeed very complimentary, but at the end of the day, we spoke all a lot about electricity, about electrification, and we should not underestimate how much more electricity we will need for the carbon capture and storage, for the hydrogen, for the district heating, cooling, and you name it, and you name it. And so the priority, and let me formulate that wish, is really to accelerate the decarbonization of electricity, the ramp up of new capacity, the flexibility. And I think what was remarkable is that we managed to bring in the demand side. Very often everything is addressed from a supply side perspective, but the demand side matters equally, because if we want to achieve these transitions in plural, demand side will, of course, play a fundamental role. So what was also remarkable is that we heard a lot of calls for collaboration and actually examples of many concrete things that are going on. So that, I think, is very promising. I think it really makes the case for this meeting today, for this gathering today. And let us all thank our panelists and wish also to the UAE and to His Excellency Sultan Al Jaber a very successful COP. At least everybody here on in this table is committed to working towards that success. So thank you all, and an applause for our speakers. Thank you. And we can take a picture. Yeah.
So thank you everyone for... ما في مايك ما عاد حدا بده يسمع. Well, thank you so much for this amazing panel. And now I invite everyone to join us for the lunch break. And we will see you back at 1:50 to continue our panels for this late afternoon. And bon appétit for everyone.